Welcome, everybody, to the 37th episode of 6 on 6. It's our last show before our super show before the Munich Major. For those of you that are following CG Sports, you know that there's a pretty big event coming up. So big, in fact, it has completely broken Fett. He's back to normal. There we go. Joining us is Mint, who as co-host is now a permanent staple of this show. And based on feedback that many of you have given, we will have producer David, the voice of God, speaking and chiming in from time to time. Producer David, would you like to say hello to give the people a taste?
Hello, this is producer David. I have quite an extensive knowledge on League and Counter-Strike esports, not necessarily on Rainbow Six, but there are a lot of topics that are generalized to esports in total. So if there's ever anything that I feel like I can contribute to with knowledge from other scenes, then I will go ahead and do so.
There you have it. Producer David has been in our ears throughout the last 6 episodes that we've done so far. You've never been able to hear him. In keeping with our dedication to feedback, you have said that you'd like to hear from David. So we will hear from David. Now, the main topic of today's show is going to be on casting. We're actually going to talk about something that we brought up on the show a couple episodes ago, but we didn't have time to actually dive into. We're going to touch on how that relates to the Tier 2 scene, because if you follow Twitter or any of the Tier 2 stuff that we talked about in the previous episode, there was a bit of a firestorm involving some T2 casting and the standards of those casters and whether those standards were upheld. Right after that, we're going to whisk our way into something pretty cool, actually. Project Prisma does a fantasy league for Rainbow Six Siege. If you ever played fantasy football or fantasy baseball or basketball or hockey or any of that stuff, well, good news, we do it for Siege as well. My good friend Jesse J. Chick has put me on to this. So we're going to be talking about picking a team, and not only are we going to talk about our rosters, but you can join the league and you can join our sub-league and be a part of the 6 on 6 league. And then we're going to be wrapping up by doing our Munich Major Pickems. We have picked the 8 teams that we think are going to make it to the finals. We are going to talk about what we picked and why. It's going to be a bit of a shorter episode this time, just because we will have a longer episode coming up next week with the Super Show, where right now we hope to have representatives from every single region. Without further ado, casting is the main thing that you hear when you turn into a professional broadcast, whether it be real sports, whether it be esports, whether it be simulated fake sports. The casters bring the action to life by voicing the things you see and answering the questions of who, what, where, when, why, and how when the actual game is ongoing. But just because casters exist doesn't necessarily mean that they're always hitting the mark. As a caster, I am well aware that there are plenty of times where I miss the mark myself and can always improve. Now, the 2 gentlemen that join me happen to do a lot of co-streaming, and while they co-stream, they get to listen to the casters and provide unbiased insight into what they hear. Fett, I know that this is a topic near and dear to your heart, and I'm certain that you'll have a lot to say about it. So let's start off. The floor is yours.
Yeah. I think like most recently during Element 6, there was a org owner that was very, very unhappy with the way his team was criticized during the game. I unfortunately was not able to look into it. I don't think, Mint, were you able to look into it at all, or like listen to the casting or anything? I don't think any of us were able to look into it, right?
No.
Yeah, so I don't think we'll be able to cover that today, but this has been something that I've been thinking about for a while, and the story.
I can cover it.
Oh, you can cover it. You want to cover it? Go ahead.
Well, no, let's start with the general casting theory first, and then we can talk about how that applies to Element 6 and Tier 2.
Yeah. So this was back when I was making that big old video essay about like why I think Siege is dying and like the things that we could fix, right? Like I made a big long video that actually was really, really popular on basically not only the problems associated with Siege, but what we and everyone in the community can do to fix it. One of those things I hit on was actually casting. I know it seems really dramatic. Can, shout casting kill a game, basically? But I think partially it can be part of the factor, because what caused me, and I know we had an exchange on Twitter over this, Antero, what caused me to think like that is I watched the CS Major, and this team was like down 10-1. And they got another round. They were getting 10-1. They got 2 on, and then they made it 10-2 instead. And the casters went, every comeback starts with 1. And
I say that.
Yeah, but I'm really glad you say that because in my head I immediately thought, wow, that was great. But also, I that was really refreshing because I don't think I'd ever hear that in Siege. Like I feel like the anticipation in Siege is when a team's getting dogged on every time the opposing team makes a round coming back. It's almost like it was a fluke round. Like, oh, they got one, but they're not gonna get another, right? Anytime a team gets upset, it seems like 95% of the time it's more so the fact that the team that's getting upset is doing a terrible, terrible job, and never the underdog that's coming up and rising against the greater team is actually playing well, you know? So I don't know. I kind of talked about how casting in Siege almost has a podcasty vibe over a dramatic vibe. I know in our exchange we talked about how online is different from LAN, and I know that plays a huge role in it. And you can go on to this when you respond to me in a few seconds here. But in my video, I said I do think that's completely fair. I think if you watch online CS, it's also a less serious attitude and less suspenseful, less drama. But I think sometimes we're dealt the cards we have, and our game is just sadly mostly online throughout the coverage of pro league in general. So I think we probably have to do with that what we will, and still try to keep a serious tone. And I'll go more into what I think, like, because I know co-streamers can also be heavily criticizing of teams and all that. But yeah, I mean, we could just start with there. What do we think of the overall tonality of casting and Siege? Because from that video, people now come into my co-streams or in Pro League, and I see in the Pro League chat even like, ever since I watched a video of Fett saying Siege casting sounds like a podcast, I can't unhear it.
Mint, do you
So,
have any thoughts?
yeah, I generally no, I have no thoughts actually in my head at all times. But thankfully, you guys have great thoughts, so I will bridge off those thoughts. So I mean, again, nowhere near the size of your co-streams, but I get very similar chatters to your viewers that come say the same thing to me. I have also, you make a great point. I have also been quick to criticize also casting sometimes, where then boom, I'll immediately start hearing all my chat kind of jump on it. And, I'm starting to learn, I'm new into content, so I'm starting to learn the power of also me saying something is, everyone starts jumping on that. But you also said something really good there too, which was we're always commenting on a team doing bad instead of the other team doing something well. And like, I do think it's kind of at least I noticed it even on the professional side of playing too, where if you're on a team and you guys lose, it's always like, oh, we could have did this better. We could have did this better. You know what I mean? Like, it's always like, we lost that game. Like, we trolled, right? Like, that's what we trolled that game. We should have had 3 more rounds. When it's like, well, give credit to them. Like, Siege is not a perfect game. You can't play it perfectly. Like, it's a game played by like inches, just like any other sport is, right? Like, it's the little things that matter, and it's about who makes the least mistakes. You guys lost, like, own it. And I think we'll see that even. I'm going to translate that to football, where I was just watching a game where they were on like the 2-yard line. For anyone that watches football, I know we got a Canadian in here. They were on the 2-yard line, backed up. The quarterback ends up, it's a safety, right? And instead of like immediately jumping on what was that quarterback doing? Why was he running around back there? Why didn't he throw it away? It was more like, oh my God, did you see the moves on that defensive end and how he got past the lineman? And like, he's got great quickness and great speed. Like, it's always quick to be positive in sports. Where, I mean, I do agree with your point. I do think that it's a lot of always like negative and bad and like, why do they do this? Why do they do that? Which we can, we can keep going into, but that's my general thoughts on it. And like, I would be curious to hear your thoughts as well, Parker, because I know also it could be probably exhaustive to be like that and keep the hype up for tons and tons of matches every single day. You got like 6 best of 1s in a day, or you have multiple best of 3s in a day. It's hard for everything to be just as hype, which is probably why when we get to events, so we get to like, Munich and stuff like that, it's a lot easier. You're more dialed in for events. Totally understand that. Still think CSGO is on another level, and I agree with Fett on that aspect. But I do know like online Siege, it's obviously it's a problem. So yeah, I'd be curious to hear like, what kind of factors and stuff goes into that.
I think there's a lot of things here. I like many people consider Counter-Strike to be the best esport. I don't know if you two would agree with me on that, but I think
I do.
I think out of all the esports that exist, it's the top. I think it's the top in terms of the ecosystem. I think it's the top in terms of gameplay. I think it's the top in terms of production and casting. I think there's almost no real weaknesses when I watch CS. It's got an extraordinary amount of money. Working with ESL, working with Faceit, working with Blast. I've worked with all of these TOs while they've simultaneously run CS leagues, and seeing the CS production, seeing the funding that goes into it, seeing the standards and the feedback and the way all of it is put together is night and day compared to Rainbow Six. And I can tell you that it's also night and day compared to a whole whack of other esports. The talent meetings that they have, the storyline meetings that they have, the expectations that they have, they are fully in lockstep. The work that they do with production, the money that they have for content, the understanding of this game that's been around for 20 plus years at this point. It's an ecosystem that is just like, it's almost impossible to catch up to. The League of Legends obviously gets very, very close, but even then, like, I still watch League, and League tries to appeal to a different audience. The one thing I really like about Counter-Strike is it doesn't appeal to like Zoomers. It's a very professional broadcast, as we see all these other leagues, our own included, like kind of relaxing the dress code and relaxing the language that we use and being a bit more memey and appealing to more of, like, for Rainbow Six, like the Jinxie crowd. CS doesn't do that. CS is like, if you watch sports and you're an adult, you're going to watch the CS broadcast and you're going to feel at home. If you're an adult and you're watching the Rainbow Six broadcast, there's a pretty good chance you're going to hear some stuff that's kind of like cringy and for younger people, right? And that's because I think CS understands its place in the ecosystem, whereas Rainbow Six is still trying to find that. And we've gone up and we've gone down. And, I think in 2020, right before COVID hit, we were on the precipice of being a bona fide tier 1 esport. COVID did an extraordinary amount of damage to our esport because we were about to go to all LAN leagues, and we were supposed to go to, like, split up into all these sub-regions that were all going to be run by different TOs and different groups and blah, blah, blah. And then obviously all that stuff came crashing down during COVID because everything had to move online. And COVID, like, disproportionately hurt us. It was like us and Overwatch were the two esports that got screwed the hardest by COVID. But, like, when I watch CSGO, to me, that's my high water mark from, like, a casting perspective. Their casters are good. They know what to say. They know when to say it. And I'm not saying this to take away from Counter-Strike, but Counter-Strike is, I would argue, a lot more predictable than our esport. The one thing that Rainbow Six, that everybody who's come over from a bunch of different esports, and we've had CS casters come over and try to cast Rainbow Six, and they've privately confided how much more difficult it is to understand the ebb and flow of the game, find a groove, lock into that groove, and start casting it. The one thing that Rainbow Six doesn't have going for it that a lot of others do is the unpredictability factor. Our rounds are really, really long. Action will happen every now and then. Maybe a lot of action happens at the beginning, but for the most part, most of the action is going to happen in the final 30 to 40 seconds. Like, there's a lot of nothing. And when I say nothing, it's like, it's 2 minutes of discovery, droning, lurking for the defenders, like utility usage and stuff like that. And a lot of stuff gets missed. Not because our observers are bad, but because there's just so much going on at all times. Things like punch holes, rotations, the way that where drones are put, why drones are put there. There's just so much, right? And it's really challenging if you're a caster to take stock of all of that. And then the hardest part is what to talk about, when to talk about it, and when to bring it up. Here's a good example. If it's a maestro in a 1v3, and naturally the spectator is going to spectate the maestro, you're only going to be seeing what the maestro is seeing. You're not going to see what the other 3 attackers are doing. 2 of those attackers might be doing invaluable work on the other side of the map to cut through utility, get to the bomb site. Maybe one of them has the defuse kit. All you're going to see is the maestro engaging with one operator, and maybe the maestro dies, and now there's 3 attackers still left. The round is over, and all we can do is fixate on what the maestro did without really talking about what the other 3 attackers did, because we didn't get to see that. And if we don't see what the maestro did prior to that moment, we're going to be stepping into an action or execute or something in the middle of it with no real knowledge. And people are going to be like, well, they missed so much. Well, of course we missed so much because we're focusing on one guy. Every map has multiple floors. Every map has multiple bomb sites. There's going to be rotates. There's going to be kill holes. There's going to be destruction on both a vertical and a linear sense. All of that stuff can be missed. You're not really missing that in League of Legends. You're not really missing that in Overwatch. You're not really missing that in Counter-Strike. All of this stuff is immediately visible. That's not how our esport works. And it's really easy to condemn us when we miss stuff like that because we only get a small window of what's actually happening. And there are times where I've gotten yelled at because I've missed things that players think are obvious, but stuff that we've never seen. A gadget put somewhere, a roam or a rotate done, a drone that goes unspotted. We don't see that stuff. It's hard for us to talk about that. So it's really challenging, and you have to be really comfortable with the game. And it's something that, like, when you look at Counter-Strike, et cetera, and I know I've been talking a lot here just because this is obviously my wheelhouse, because I am a caster, but like, it's really easy to criticize Siege casters for missing things, but that's because we don't get to see it. And a very important caveat here is when we are casting online, all we see is what you see. Counter-Strike usually has multiple observers. They can see multiple things. They can see multiple feeds. When we cast on LAN, we almost always have a permanent top-down that the analysts can use that we don't have when we cast online. You ever wonder why LAN casting is better? It's not just because we're on LAN, it's because we genuinely have a second observer that can show us different things. So we don't really have the luxury of multiple observers to see multiple things. So we miss a lot, and it sucks. And it makes us look kind of stupid sometimes. And there's no real way to fix it other than to give us permanent multiple observers per match online, which is doable but costly and can be hard from a technology standpoint, or to just go fully LAN like a lot of other leagues do. But we did that for Rainbow Six, and I just don't think the budget is really there. So that's how I see things. You guys are welcome to chime in, but I have a lot more obviously to discuss. I don't want to dominate the time, but those are just a few things that I think are worth discussing.
Yeah. Producer David has mentioned that he has points.
I do have many points, but we'll just go one at a time. A first point is that number one thing that I see as important to casters in terms of the idea of overly flaming teams, players, etc., is that the one thing that's important is you don't want to disrespect the viewer's intelligence. There are times to where you can be overly critical, where somebody is making a play that is understandable or on the edge, and you could be overly critical of that. But there are also times where people are just doing borderline win trading, match fixing style plays. And if you don't call something like that out, then it feels like the viewer's intelligence is being disrespected.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I've thought about this a lot since in coming up in Siege. I think like going through the ranks of Siege, going through the different levels of casting, and I'm really glad you brought up the LAN things. I actually didn't know that. That makes a lot more sense now as to why LAN casting just seems that much more impressive besides the stakes in online casting. So that's totally valid. I completely agree. I completely agree that like criticism should always be said when it's there. When it's there in front of your face, it should always be said. That being said, I think my biggest issue with Siege casting is that there are times where it seems like we are looking for nothing but criticism, right? So I have examples, and I'm going to say the examples, and I'm going to say the names of people in the examples, but I want to preface this with the fact that I don't have hatred out for these people. No one should have hatred out for these people because I know that it is infinitely harder to cast than it is to just talk about a caster. Easier said than done is one of the biggest things in casting. Because guess what? I fucking tried it. Okay? That shit was impossible. Right? So I could stream all day long. I could never fucking cast a single day in my life. That shit was borderline impossible. Take it from me. Everyone begs me to go on and cast and fix this issue. I can never do it a day in my life. It is the hardest fucking thing ever. Okay? So I know that for a fact. Right? But I still think it's valid for me to say, and I'll start with the first example. My good friend actually casting Lynx. I was watching multiple broadcasts with Lynx in a stage of Pro League where I feel like Lynx was going for something that I called during my streams appalled maxing. Where it's like, at every moment that Lynx could have been like, what? What is that guy doing? It was always happening. Like, it was like almost round after round after round after round of, what? What is that guy? What is that guy doing? What? Right? So that's something that kind of hit me a bit, and I actually ended up criticizing Lynx pretty toughly for that. Eventually, it did get to a point where I kind of made a jab at Lynx while Lynx was in my chat, and I fucked up, so I had to go apologize to Lynx. But I think Lynx actually, we had a good conversation after that apology. Lynx took that criticism, and going back into casting, it started with a duo cast between you and Lynx, I believe, where Lynx asked me after the fact, hey, how did I do on that one? I tried to switch it up for today. And it was a really pleasant change, because there was moments where I saw what seemed like to a viewer could be an obvious mistake, because Siege is like a deep game. What seems like a really obvious mistake, Lynx actually had the ball mouse to be like, no, that person was under a lot of pressure with these variables into play, and that's why they move like that in that scenario. And I was pleasantly surprised, and it added to the viewing experience. I think for me, the constant negative is actually detrimental to the feel of the game.
I agree.
I have a lot. I think, is it okay if I go like on a crazy tangent here, or like,
Of course.
Okay, man, you
What do
okay
you
with
mean,
that?
is it okay? No, we
Okay.
gotta keep it short. Like, yeah,
Okay.
no hot takes. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Go off.
I think if you look at the history of esports, I think some of its most iconic moments across every game are made by the casting, right? Look at League of Legends. Faker,
course.
look at the moves, look at the plays. What was that? If you look at CS, Hiko, inhuman reactions. If you look at Siege, be patient, iconic, be patient. These are quoted rounds. There you go, the guy right there, right? These are quoted rounds across time. And I think one of the best examples of a quoted negative criticism moment was, why are you sprinting bio? Rest in peace, the greatest, right? But why are you sprinting by? I went back and watched that whole game. I think that moment worked so well because it was suspense. Why are you sprinting bio? Conclusion. You know, it was surrounded by suspense building and story building, and then the moment of sharp criticism. Versus if I think it's endless criticism, then I think it's almost like the viewers are like, why am I watching this game? This team is dog shit. This team is the favorites. They're clearly gonna win. This team is playing like horseshit. Why do I even watch? And that's why when I cast, when I coach them, I feel like there's roles. I think there's roles to this, and I think I'm glad you brought up the thing about identity, because I've also studied so many other games in terms of like thinking about this problem. Like, I do think Siege is still finding its identity, but at least in my head, I hypothesize the role of Siege casters to still be to build suspense. The main job is to build suspense, because from a YouTube point, it's like gaining retention, making sure that guys hooked onto the esports match and continuing to watch. And maybe the co-streamer can bring in, yeah, this guy's dog shit, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes I feel like I can't even do that, because I have to balance out whatever the caster's on board and is shitting on the game sometimes. So that's the way I view it. I think criticism should be said when it's valid, but sometimes it feels like it's too much. And there's multiple models, multiple games that Siege could try to emulate, like chess, like NBA, like, you know, F1, like, and I'll get into this later. I have all these models in my head, like Smash, that all have different models of the seriousness of the casting versus the community reaction versus the goofiness of the casting versus the community reaction, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into that after I let you guys respond now, because I've been going for way too long. But in my head, the rule for me is criticism should be said when it's valid, but criticism should be beset by suspense building such that the criticism stands out and creates a moment, as opposed to a string of endless criticism and honestly searching for criticism, like we're looking for it, like we're and we only want to do it, and then it feels like it takes away from the importance of the game at hand.
Kyle, do you have anything to add, or can I jump in here really, really quick?
Go for it.
So you hit on two things that I think are really important, and one thing that I really resonate with, that really resonates with me, is that you have to ask the question, why? Why do people need to care about this match? Why do people care about the esport? Why do people need to care about these teams? Why do people need to care about the stakes of this match, right? That's like, it's basic expectation setting. That's like the most fundamental thing of this cast, is like, yeah, obviously the cast is there to be entertaining, but you also need to answer questions. When you talk about the flow of our esport, we have an inordinate amount of downtime, like I said. It's almost like, which, you know, I'm going to bring this up because as a Toronto Jays fan, Blue Jays fan, where they might, depending on what time this goes live, the Blue Jays might have even won the World Series. They are currently beating the Dodgers as we talk. Our esport is very similar to a Blue Jays, or to not just a Blue Jays game, but to a baseball game. There's a lot of downtime. It's very slow, and there are bursts of action, but there's not like prolonged action for the most part. And you have to figure out how to fill that downtime, which is what comes back to the why is somebody watching? You've got a 3-minute round of action, potentially longer if the diffuser gets planted right at 000. You've also got the prep phase. You've also got operator select phase, etc. You're looking at anywhere from like 4 to 4.5 minutes to even close to 5 minutes of why should somebody watch when there's going to be maybe 20 to 30 seconds of action in that 5-minute window. And why? You have to answer that question. Why care? If you tune into a CG Sport broadcast, like if you tune into CG Sports and you tune into a broadcast and all you hear are casters dogging on teams or highlighting mistakes or constantly belittling plays or getting exasperated at the stuff that they see, why are you going to keep watching? If you watch traditional sports, there are tons of mistakes being committed all the time. They are never harped on as harshly as they are in esports. Usually they'll be like, that's an error from whatever. Oh, it's a dropped pass, or, oh, you know, they failed their check or something like that. And then they move on. Because the thing is, and I think we need to remember this in Siege, and honestly, it's something that I struggle to remember from time to time. A lot of times a play happens, in part not because somebody does really, really well or really, really poorly, but actually a mix of both. Usually somebody's going to screw up, and how do they capitalize off of it? And I find in not just Siege, but a lot of esports, a lot of people just focus on, well, they screwed up. They don't focus on, well, how was the response to that? Right? So you need, during the downtime, to sing the praises of the teams. You need to bring up stats that answer the question, why? And then when the action happens, you've already kind of laid the groundwork where you let the action tell its story, and then you bring up both sides. If there are mistakes being made, like the Why Are You Sprinting, which for the record is one of the worst games that we have seen in North America. It was a dreadfully bad game. Beast Coast Egg Set is infamous for being one of the worst matches we've ever seen. Caliber Jacob had to cast that with kicks, if you recall, because I had surgery on a septoplasty to fix my nose because I had a deviated septum. I couldn't breathe through my nose for like 20 something years, almost 30 years. And to the point, by the way, a lot of people were mad at that cast. It's legendary for us, but if you recall, Marco and a lot of the XSET guys were pissed about the way that both Jacob and Kix handled that cast, but that's a whole other conversation. But if you're not addressing the why, and then you are being mostly negative, what is the point of watching it? Why am I going to keep watching if all I hear is like, well, these two teams suck. What's the point? Number one, it looks bad on our esport, because if this keeps happening match after match after match, does every team suck? Why should I care about any of these teams? But also, it doesn't grow the brand. You want to lift people up. Part of your job as a caster is to lift people up. It's to make our league look good. There is a lot of downtime. You need to be excited when exciting stuff happens. Now, the last thing I'll say before tossing it back over was, kind of ties into what you said, Fett, but also what David said, is integrity is very important. If a match is really, really bad, let's look at Shopify Rebellion versus Cruelty that I casted a couple weeks ago. Fucking horrible match. Cruelty looked like complete dog shit. Yeah, they look like garbage. Yeah. I'm not going to cast that game when it's a blow-off, unimportant match with a team that's about to go without a single win, without a single point. I'm not going to cast that match like it's serious, because it's not. And you can't insult the viewer's intelligence, but you also can't be mean-spirited about it. You're not there to belittle the players on the team, but you were there to call a spade a spade. Yeah. Cruelty was horrendous. The match quality that we saw was horrendous. You need to be honest about that to a point, but you can't dig in. And I find that a lot of casters don't actually know good Siege from bad. And I've been guilty of this before. It's a lot easier to point out when something goes wrong. It's a lot harder to identify when teams make micro adjustments to be better. That comes with skill, that comes with experience. A lot of casters just don't have that. And I count myself in that same category. It's incumbent upon all of us to be better about how we understand this game. And frankly, that's why guys like both of you are so important. And more casters should be opening up a dialogue with coaches, with players, with content creators to make sure that they're actually properly reflecting the state of the game and are understanding what's happening. Because if you don't understand the game and you try to cast it, your cast isn't going to be very good, both fundamentally and from a viewership perspective. The people are just not going to care.
No, well said. I think you both are agreeing with like the same points that like I'll get into too, which is like, you know, I think we all agree that I feel like it feels lazy almost to just kind of call out and why they suck instead of trying to break things down and break things down in the game and like the good things that are happening. So that's where I kind of think a lot of it also comes from. But also like you had a point about where to fill the space or how to fill the space. I mean, I myself has also tried to cast, and just like Fett, first off, incredibly, I don't even know how you guys do it. Okay, so start right there. I lose focus too. I don't know. You're right. The game is more like baseball where there's a lot of slow time and things like that. Try to feel how to break down the space. But at least when I'm co-streaming, what I try to do because it's also downtime there, right? Like we're also just staring at a camera like, okay, that was a cool round. Like I got to feel things to say. But it's like I try to do it the same way we're kind of taught as pro players, where it's like, again, yeah, talking about the good things each team are doing, how the teams are playing, which stylistically, which means what might they be doing to make adaptions. You can constantly tell that round to round with like, okay, well, they're playing really aggressive here, so they're going to change their formation here. Oh, they're bringing a line, they're bringing a nomad, they're going to be countering their quick plays and things like that. Okay, now they're starting to force executes. You can tell they're going to C4 win cons, Pulse, Valkyrie, Mozzie, right? So like trying to like at least keep the viewer involved about like why they might be seeing a different operator stuff, right? They might have noticed during a timeout they started playing really aggressive, but they were getting countered. Super calls a timeout. Boom, it's C4 win con. And you can kind of call that out and talk about why, right? And I do think, to your point, maybe there's some that don't quite have the knowledge, or they're exhausted, or whatever other reasons they're not quite catching on to it. That sometimes is not kind of talked about. Now, what I do want to ask you guys, because you guys both kind of talked about it, but like, what is the line for the criticism? Because are we talking more gameplay? Because I do have an example that I want to go into.
Go in.
But my line is like, I'm okay talking about the gameplay. And I first off agree completely with producer David as well with like, you know, if a match also is like terrible, like the Cruelty shop, if I didn't mean anything, I myself was playing clown music on stream when Cruelty was attacking. Okay. I was right.
I don't think we can get away with that, unfortunately.
No, and I was just going for pure entertainment. But you know, can we insult the players' characters? Okay, because so like I do have an example, like, and again, this is no hate to this person, more so the cast, but like there was a Falcons round and it was demo casting. Okay. And it was a round for Shaiko where he dropped the red hatch and went for a play to try to kill Smoke and Red Hall, which is a huge pick. If you kill Smoke on basement, on bank basement, dropped the hatch, ended up, the guy must have moved red and whatever, he died. And it was just immediately like demo saying that, oh, that's just childish from Shaiko right there. Like just absolute childish. It's kind of started going at his character that he was throwing the round a little bit. And for me, I don't know, EU versus NA or, you know, whatever, but like, I feel like when you're going after someone and saying, like, I would rather you say that's just a bad play than calling someone like just childish and a baby. Like that word might have, don't quote me, but that word might have even gotten used because then there was a rant going on about how it's just childish and like should be throwing rounds like that. And to me, that didn't sit right. And then same with Dreams chat. Our chat kind of got into it a little bit back and forth. And now it's become a meme at this point where we just call everybody childish and everything childish. But I want to know what you guys kind of think on that as far as criticism, like calling out a bad play here or there versus, you know, maybe attacking somebody for they're just not a smart player or saying, you know, they can't, whatever it is, their intelligence, insulting their intelligence, insulting that kind of thing.
It's actually very coincidental that you bring up Demo. Once again, Demo extraordinarily talented, right? Like you would not be a tier 1 caster if you were not extraordinarily talented and hardworking. That's just how anything goes in life. But my second example actually was Demo. where I was watching a string of Brazil games, and the first thing that happened was, the angle from garage and bank basement to the default plant spot that goes all the way across.
What is it with bank?
Yeah, I don't know.
You think it just makes him go crazy?
It's just bank makes people go crazy. But FaZe had a 3v2 against a team. They have blue control. They've killed everyone. They have hatch control. They try to crouch backwards to the plant spot. They die to the garage angle. And Demo goes, how does FaZe not know that? If you have angles red and angles garage, there's an angle that can see the plant. How does FaZe not know that? You would think after all these years of being a top team in the world, you would think FaZe would know that default information. The next thing that happened was that it was a CEO. FaZe were defending. The other team they were playing went for a window.
Hold on.
Oh, sorry. Go
What
ahead.
he said is fundamentally correct. Where is your issue with that?
I
Like,
want to
what
say
an- what
I want to
angle-
say the line of examples first.
Okay.
I want to stretch because this was like a string of round after round after round
All the
of
same
in a
game.
row. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I wanted to so the next one that was really stood out in my head was this there was CEO Bank, same map, where the enemy is going for a Windows just repel intake, right? And FaZe throws a tuber out at the windows to slow down the attack. Another member of FaZe throws a smoke canister at the windows as well to pop the smoke and stop the repellents. However, if you throw a smoke and a tuber out, you can't pop the smoke. So the attackers just repel through the windows, kill everyone, plant the bomb. Rounds 1. Demo goes, you have 2 smokes in your pocket. What are you doing? Right? So I have a pretty clear picture, right? The map after that, it's Nighthaven. It's a different team versus a different team. And the enemy, it's a basement defense. And the enemy is doing a big roam. They have vert all over the site, and they have all the way extension all the way up to the top floor, and they have vert looking down into the site. And the attackers decide to go for a clear top floor. And they dump a bunch of Yings and util onto the roamers top floor to go for a clear across top floor and then down. The attackers get completely demolished by the defender's roam on that very first layer. And Demo goes, well, it's almost like it's just scrambled eggs. Why are we trying to make this fancy gourmet Michelin chef dish? It's scrambled eggs, right? Let's do something simple. It's so overcomplicated. Why not just hit site? So during the course of this cast, I want to address 2 things. And then the second thing will be where the line is, because I think those 3 examples give me a good idea of where I think I want the line to be. Obviously, it's really hard. But the first is every single round was almost like that. But I pointed out actually to my chat, because they were getting overly critical of the casters, and I was like, no, this one was actually valid. This one was actually valid. No, I would also flame the teams here. However, those 3 points where we're like, okay, that's just not valid to me at all, given the knowledge that I know, right? And I think if those rounds were left uncriticized, but the rest of the rounds were left criticized, it would create a lot more, better story roller coaster up and down. Now that being said, there is a big knowledge difference, right? Because I've coached Pro League. Even though I'm falling off, I'm old as fuck, I'm probably degrading and deteriorating, and my stocks are going way down. I do think it's, like you said, it's super hard to tell apart good Siege and bad Siege. But for me, I would try to draw the line at something like Siege is such a variable game and this is super deep, and it's super hard to do in the moment, and I know it's going to be really tough for people to grasp their heads around this, but I think this is a core question we need to ask in order to improve the quality of the cast. When are we able to anticipate the players being able to account for every single variable? Because Siege has a million variables at all times, right? The round in the basement with the garage angle. If he tried to sprint through to a deeper plant spot and then he died to a guy in lockers, would you have said, well, you're supposed to know that the red hull has an angle straight into the sprint through. Why would you sprint to the site? It's almost like there's always something they can do wrong because there's a million variables. FaZe obviously know that plant spot, right? Obviously, through their years of playing, know a default angle denial. They took a gamble because they can't account for every single variable, right? I think the smoke tuber out thing is valid because that's something that I caught out of the corner of my eye and Demo did it. But then the roam clear, right? Where you're saying they're making Michelin-starred eggs instead of scrambled eggs. Why don't they keep it simple and hit sight? If they hit sight, the enemies have vert. That's why you roam. You die to vert. Done. You lose. So it's almost like, I know, and this is all in retrospect, and there's not much we could do in the moment in the cast, but maybe for like in the off season, or if you want to improve your casting, or if anyone who like is open to this dialogue, I think that's the big question to ask: is when are there a trillion variables, and no matter what would have happened, they would have lost, and we would have had something else to criticize. When that is the case, maybe it's just better to call it what it is. They tried it, it failed. That's it. Observe. And that's something that I'll touch on more on the styles of different, things. It's like, that's something the NBA does very well. It is very observational, because the NBA is a super deep game, but the casters almost never get into the tactics of the NBA. They only get into like the muscular physique action, right? Like it's very, very clear. Like the NBA has a lot of tactics and plays that the players run all the time, but no one ever gets into it. It's just Curry, back to this guy, Curry for three, it's good. Curry down the lane this way for three, he misses. So like it's very observational is what I like to say. And I'll bring up more games later, but I think the NBA does it very, very well, where it's like there's so much in the action that just maybe can't be broken down in the moment. So let's just say what's happening on the screen, and that's it.
Producer David here. This is something that applies to both casters and players, that casters need to understand about players and viewers need to understand about casters, is that you can't have all of the information available at all time with the benefit of hindsight. You're dealing with asymmetric information, and the information that you see on screen is not the information that the player has. So something that looks like an just absolutely horrible play from a player is something that is a totally reasonable thing for them to do, because they don't have the benefits of the perfect information or the extra
Omniscience.
information that you have from the stream itself. And so that's something that people can really heavily criticize players for when it's kind of unjustified. And then also when it comes to casters, with the point that casters also don't have all of the information, especially with online games, because they don't have multiple observers. So in the same way that players should be getting a lot more grace, casters should also be getting a lot more grace with understanding that they're not going to say the perfect thing at every time or play the perfect way every time.
Yeah, I think that raises a really good point here, where there are lots of times where when I'm casting, I'm focused on one operator. I'm focused on smoke. I'm focused on what he's looking at. But somebody who's watching might be focused on what the other defender is doing, or maybe there's an attacker that you can see the silhouette from off site that's doing certain things, but because I'm talking just about the smoke as a defender, oh, the smoke's doing this. Oh, this is where the closest attacker is to him, blah, blah, blah. And then there's another attacker doing other things that somebody's been watching. Then they'll turn around and be like, well, what about this operator? Well, I wasn't focused on them. Part of the challenge of casting is deciding who to focus on when and what parts to highlight to the audience. And I think that's part of what makes it so challenging. And when I've talked to former pros that have either done desk work or have done color work, they are always stunned at how challenging it is to address all the things they want to talk about in that window of time. To your point, Fett, basketball very rarely has downtime. So you're spending a lot of it just doing play-by-play. It's the complete opposite of what we have. We have almost no play-by-play in Siege. Like, in all reality, both casters need to be able to analyze and do color work. Only one caster needs to do play-by-play, because there's so little play-by-play that much of your round is going to be focused on the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, the how. Like that is the main focus, right? And when you have so much downtime, it can be hard to find things to talk about. There are just some games that are brutally tough to analyze. I'm sure both of you guys have gone through this when you've been co-streaming. There are just round after round after round where it's like, what is there to say? Like they blew the roam. They wasted utility. Like they send their drones in, like they didn't, like they got bandit tricked, like some stupid thing like that. And like, that's it. There's not really much to dive into. And that's where preparation on the numbers becomes so important. And it's something that Jesse and I have been doing more often, which is pulling numbers, pulling stats, pulling map stats, pulling individual contributions, going back and referencing other matches, referencing games that happened earlier in the day, ways to fill out the broadcast that make it so that we don't have to like hyper fixate on relatively unimportant moments that people might pick apart at. I think there's another thing to it as well, which is that if a round is relatively mundane, like let's say, for example, that phase round that you were talking about on Bang.
Yeah.
FaZe absolutely knows that there's going to be somebody in Garage, but they're at a point in time in the round where they kind of need to gamble that that player in Garage doesn't kill them.
Yeah.
Right? They have a decision to make. Do we try to wait out the time, which there might be none of, or do we see a clear opening with the time being in our favor and we say, you know what, let's just go for it. We have to make this decision. We have to get this plant down. This is our only window of opportunity. Let's take a gamble. Let's flip a coin. We either die to Garage or we lose the round. That's what we are focused on.
Yeah.
So FaZe does that, and then it's really easy to get mad about it. And a part of it is that if you talk about the mundane, if you just say, well, you know, that was really tough for FaZe. They were in a position, backs against the wall, 1 second left. You either plant there or you lose the round. You got to make that call. It's a tough call to make, but you got to make it. Obviously, FaZe Clan actually lost the round, you could argue, even earlier by not putting any emphasis on Garage. But because they weren't able to do that, maybe the opposing team or whomever just had a better defense and it allowed the player in Garage to be sheltered and not be under fire. Suddenly now you're like, yeah, well, you know, fair enough. Like, and you move on. There's nothing sexy about that. But there's a human element to casting too. Every caster wants their words immortalized. Every caster wants their clip played back over and over and over again. Do you think if a caster goes, well, you know, that was a tough decision to make, whatever, blah, blah, do you think that's a sexy clip that's going to be widely shared? Or if a caster crashes out over a bad play, do you think that maybe that clip will get shared a bit more? And suddenly now everybody's like, wow, like W caster, like incredible. Like, look at that, like calling out FaZe Clan, like what a baller, blah, blah, blah. So in our minds, it's not just about always calling things as you see them. It's also about us trying to tell a story, and sometimes being a little bit outlandish is frankly necessary. The why are you sprinting bio is a great example of that. That entire game was horrendous, but you could have very easily approached that Beast Coast exec game with kids' gloves and just been like, hey, this isn't very good, and then moved on. Instead, Kix and Jacob decided to go full scorched earth. This is the worst thing we've ever seen. And it made for a very entertaining broadcast. It made both teams look like garbage. It kind of made our broadcast look a little bit amateurish. But sometimes that's okay because it's entertaining. And sometimes it's okay to just, like I said, call a spade a spade. So there's a lot of things that go into it, not just from a strategic standpoint, but also from a casting and narrative standpoint. Another good example of this, and I've actually gotten into arguments with other casters about this, I'm the kind of guy that thinks you need to pace a game properly. If somebody gets a 4K in round one, that's huge, but that shouldn't be an earth-shattering 10 out of 10 on the energy scale. Because you've got potentially 11 plus more rounds to go. If you're hitting a 10 in round one, how do you go up from there?
Yeah.
You don't. So if somebody hits an incredible, nasty 4K, you got to be like hyped, but you can't explode. There are certain casters in Siege that I've gotten into discussions with, some of them cordial, some of them a bit more contentious, where I say like, hey, I think you're giving way too much energy to early action. I think it does a disservice to the cast. Frankly, it puts all the other casters in a weird spot because then it becomes like this arms race for energy where every caster is now trying to scream at every opportunity. And it's very amateurish. Like, listen to most traditional sports and casters get hyped, but they're not screaming and like blowing their head off and losing their minds. But I find that happens a lot in Siege. I'm not that kind of caster. I can get hype, but my energy levels will never reach the highs that certain other talent in Rainbow Six have. I know that. That's just who I am. That's the kind of casting I do. So I try to pace the game. Other casters have told me straight up, Siege is kind of boring sometimes, so any big moments, we're going to give them all the big energy. And I'm like, I'm not telling you not to do that. I'm telling you to just stagger it. A 4K in round number 1 gets a 6 or a 7 out of 10. A 4K in round 11 to win the round, to send us to a 12th round, that's a 10 out of 10. Like, we need to pace it. But everybody's going to approach it with a different mindset, and everybody's going to approach it as well with different desires, different wants, and different preferences. last point before I throw it back. Kix and I did a little bit of VCT. And this was in the early days when Nerd Street was doing VCT. This was before Riot took over, full stop. And the one criticism that Kix and I assessed was that every single caster that was working VCT was in the same position. They were all trying to out-energy each other. Everybody was screaming all the time, oh my God, somebody got a 2K on pistol rounds? Let's lose our fucking minds. And I was just like, this looks amateurish. But every caster was doing it because every caster wanted a huge moment and they wanted to be the energy guy. Kix and I approached it much lower. And we got some scorn for it. People were like, these guys are kind of boring. Like, why are they not shouting like the other guys? But slowly but surely, the temperature started to come down in VCT. And other duos started doing the same thing. Not because of Kix and I, but just because that's the way it should be on a professional broadcast. But a lot of the audience likes that energy. A lot of the audience likes that. And if you don't give it that 10 out of 10 at all times, people are going to call you boring. And unlike real sports, we use Twitter. We're accessible. We're seeing the things people say about us. We're seeing people call us boring. We're seeing people post Resident Sleeper in the Twitch chat. When we try to call a game properly, but you're used to people yelling like maniacs, and now that's the standard. So anything below that is a snooze fest. So it's tough. It's tough to balance all those things, not just in the game, but also the thinking behind casting, while also trying to get your big moments publicized and spread on social media.
This is a great point that you're bringing up, in that ultimately your goal as a caster is to try to make the broadcast overall be as good as it possibly can be. And there are many casters who try to get their own sort of personal highlight reel in. This is something that is commonly seen in the European broadcast in League of Legends, where it feels like there are many casters who are just always trying to get in that catchphrase quotable line that makes a pun on the player name or something. And that is definitely something that reveals itself on broadcast. And a couple other points is that, one, on the idea of overly sterile broadcasts is where you can kind of go a little bit too far the other way, which is something that's commonly looked at in the North American League and League of Legends, where they mimicked the NFL, because a lot of the original people that were controlling the LCS were ex-NFL people, and they constantly tried to make it as sterile as traditional sports are. But traditional sports are also to a completely different audience. They have FCC regulations that they have to do. And with them being on TV in a completely different space, that broadcast is looked at as the most corporate, milquetoast, boring broadcast in esports. Whereas you look at the Korean broadcast, the LCK broadcast, has always been beloved throughout every generation. You have the Monty and Doa LFN crew members that have some of the best casting moments and the best vibes, even in the bad games. And that's something that the Korean League of Legends League has always had, is understanding the balance between when you need to be hype and when you need to be chill. Because there are games that aren't as important, there are moments that are not as hype, and when you take those moments and you try to make them something that they're not, then that just makes for a worse casting experience. And then also a point with that, with the criticism that is given for the leagues, one of the biggest co-streamers in League of Legends at one point, LS, he also used to be a caster on the Korean League. And when he is a co-streamer, you'll hear him 3 minutes into the game or in the draft phase say, all right, this game is over. It's done. There's nothing. These players are win trading. It's the worst thing possible. And having much more of a unfiltered negative vibe. Whereas when he was a caster, there was much less of that overt negativity. And when there was negativity, it was almost played up in a more entertaining way, to where one thing that was common in that league is times in the game or in, rounds where nobody's doing anything for several minutes, just completely doing nothing at all, and then came up with a catchphrase for that, calling it the lull state, and then kind of playing that and making it be part of the fun of the broadcast, to where it's not being overtly negative even with its criticism, which is something that is a skill that can be acquired.
I've in Siege, I've started calling it the discovery phase. So when we're in,
I've noticed that.
it's a term that I started using because I didn't really have an elegant way or an eloquent way of describing teams kind of just dithering about. Like teams will go on drones and they'll get off drones, and they'll slightly reposition, then they'll go back on drones, and then they're like, and nothing is really happening, but they're trying to figure out where the defenders are and go over it multiple times to find a weak spot. I started referring to it as like we're still in the discovery phase, like where you need to kind of capture the moment and you need to kind of speak exactly what it is in very plain language so that people aren't bored, because there's only so many times that we can discuss what drones are seeing without people getting, quite tired. But I think it's funny because I do think that audiences want different things. Some North American fans really just want explosive casting all the time. And I don't think that's right. And then some North American fans don't want any character at all. I mean, Siege is a very unfunny esport. Every time casters try to be funny, there just always seems like there's some kind of community backlash. Like they're getting too chummy and they're injecting too much humor. And it's like, just cast the game. And it's like, brother, there is 2 minutes and 45 seconds of fucking nothing happening. I'm going to crack a joke or two in the first 25 seconds of a round. You can chill your ass. Like, that's just the way it's going to work. Kyle, you've been quiet for a while?
I have been quiet for a while. Really, really taking in everything here. Because you guys everyone makes... what was that? Yeah, big intaker. I mean, you guys are making a lot of great points. And I think you just touched on it right there. Is like everyone kind of enjoys the different flavor. I mean, I feel like the wheels are going to keep spinning on this event. Like we've talked about that it happens in other esports too, right? Like, unfortunately, I feel like this is kind of, I don't know what direction we're eventually going to end in. I know what I prefer, and also to touch on your point. So okay, well, I'll go into that. Sure. What I prefer, and I feel like I don't want to talk for all pros, but at least at my time, because I'm sure, Parker, you have heard many times where even if someone's saying it jokingly or not, that they mute the cast when they watch back the VODs, right? As pros.
All the time.
Okay, yeah. People
Troy
say
says
whatever.
it on this show. Troy said it on the show every episode.
Yeah,
and did not let me forget.
So, I mean, really, all we want is some like non-biased kind of just calling what you observe, like Fett said, right?
Mhm.
Like just what you see is what you get, kind of thing. And then ideally, your color commentator, or even better, if we get to the TriCasts, I just want to compliment Ace and Dez. And when they had Doki on, I thought that was a phenomenal TriCast. But calling what you observe, and then every once in a while having that moment of like, Doki jumps in, a pro player jumps in, your color caster jumps in and saying, hey, they did that top floor take. It didn't work out. They really try to get the vert because it's really strong on this site. They noticed that there wasn't a lot of roamers. That's why they chose to go up top floor. Really trying to bridge the gap for the viewers, because that's what I'm trying to do with co-streaming too. And I'm pretty sure that's Fett's mission as well, right? We're like really trying to break down the games because we have such a complicated game where for me, it's not about what you guys miss. Like, we're gonna miss stuff. I miss stuff even co-streaming where my chat's like, well, no, he did that. That's why. I'm like, oh, well, I couldn't see it either, right?
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. It's trying to explain the why. I think that's the important thing. It's not calling out the bad. Going way back, you said it was like caster knowledge versus negative energy. For me, my ideal cast is it's not much. It's very non-biased. It's just, again, we're calling what we observe. We're just keeping it kind of neutral. I like your point with the building up the hype, right? I think, look, even music does that, right? Like, look at the song Hallelujah. They don't go all out on that first Hallelujah. They wait, right? They build. So I love that too, especially how Fett says with the roller coaster thing. I think that's exactly how. I think there's times for the criticism, but it's just like, if we're just going to constantly, kind of shit on people, it's not very fun to watch. And what does the viewer think? Oh, we're going to just, what do you think the viewer thinks when they watch Fofo at this point in his career? Like, I feel like he's
dude. What do I think when I watch Fofo, dude? Like,
but there's lots of, sure. And he probably loves it. He probably loves it too.
Forrest loves the cast, dude.
He's the agent of chaos.
So many bewildering moments.
Yeah.
And I call him out too. But that's where I'm trying to figure out also with co-streaming, where it's like, where do Jinxie set the bar real high with like every time a round happens, do I got to fall out of my chair backwards? Right? Do I got to go running around the room, my pants falling off, like just excited that someone got a 4K? Like I'm trying to learn my space. I'm a 30-year-old. I don't say how old, but I'm in my 30s, right? Like I don't need to be.
Let's go to your Wikipedia and take a look, shall we?
Right. Yeah, I don't need to be having 6'7" on my my soundboard, which yes, I might have. Right. But
good.
Yeah, I don't know. Just unbiased, breaking down the game, keeping it simple. I love the hype moments. I love the like with the bio moment where I think it was appropriately timed, like Fett said. But again, it's going to be a work in progress, and I the factors you bring up to Intero or Parker, whatever you prefer to go by here,
whichever.
I think are perfect to. I mean, also we talked about with the caster side of things, which again totally get as well. So it's a tough discussion. I love talking about it because I don't know if anything's really going to get there, but
well, I think
we all prefer
improving.
Different things.
We are, yeah.
I think the casting is steadily improving, and I'll let Fett talk about it.
Oh no!
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about all the ways they're improving, Fett.
Well, no, I mean,
go ahead. Go. No, I'm so sorry.
No, because there's another aspect. We're at an hour now.
Yeah.
And we've still got technically 3 subjects to cover. I think we've reached a pretty good point where we're all kind of on the same page. So if you want, we can lead this into that T2 discussion that you wanted to bring up, or I can bring it up. But basically, I think every caster is going to say that they're good at their job, right? Like, I feel like that's pretty normal. And I mean, people will agree and disagree with that statement. Some people think that I'm not very good at my job. Some people think I'm very good at my job. It depends on what you're looking for. And there are lots of times where it's like, I'll listen. I watch a lot of traditional sports, and it's like, I think my favorite commentator ever is Doc Emmerich. My dad hates him. Can't stand him. Another buddy of mine can't stand him. Both of them are like, he's too wordy. He's too nasally. And it's like, I love that. I love that style of voice. And it's like, I love his wordplay. He's almost too wordy sometimes. And a lot of people are like, just shut up and get to the point. Sometimes I like that. But that's the whole thing, right? Like everybody has a different opinion on it. And it's like, I don't get offended when people say like, you're not my favorite caster. I think I am fundamentally good at my job. So when somebody says like, you're a bad caster, I disagree. But if you don't like my casting, I can't disagree with that. It's up to you. It's a taste preference, right? Like I like pineapple on pizza. I know lots of people don't. I don't like olives. I know lots of people do. Like, it's just, why do you like the things you like? Sometimes we don't know, right? But with Siege, I think there's been a couple issues here. Number one, we've almost never received feedback from anybody in any position of power at any point. I have been now a caster for over 8 years, and I can count on one hand the amount of times that either tourney organizers, ESL, DreamHack, Faceit, Blast, or Ubisoft itself has given me feedback in 8 years.
Damn.
There is a startling lack and a very frustrating lack of insight from the top coming down to us as to what their expectations are.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you did this really well. Hey, you didn't do this very well. Hey, I think these are your strengths. Hey, I don't think these are your strengths. We don't really have those conversations. We're kind of rudderless. A lot of the casters just have to figure this out on their own. And unlike traditional sports, there is no big ecosystem that we're all involved in. Very few of us went to school for anything. A lot of the casters didn't even go to post-secondary education. Some of the casters didn't even graduate high school. And now here they are kind of steering the ship. And it's like, whereas you look at a lot of the big broadcasters that work in like professional sports, a lot of them went to school for broadcasting. They cut their teeth in a collegiate scene. They worked their way up. They're not getting a crack at the big leagues until they're older than I already am. And they've been able to hone those skills. But you got guys that are hopping in that are 21 years old, getting thrown on a broadcast in front of tens of thousands of people, and there's nobody at the top going, hey, these are ways that I think you should improve. The only real feedback that I tend to receive is from my own coworkers, other casters, other players, other casters in other sports. That's where I receive my feedback. And it's really quite frustrating because I wish somebody had a greater handle on what we're doing, because feedback is really helpful. They have gotten rid of casters without really giving them much feedback. And then casters turn around and go like, I don't know why I got fired. I don't know why they didn't pick me up again. Or they'll just say little things like, you really need to like work on this or that. And then that's it. And then they never give them any feedback from that point onward. And it's just like, you're kind of left to your own devices. And it sucks because I wish I knew more of what they want in a cast. Because right now it's just up to me to figure out what I think is best. And I can work really hard on something and I think like, wow, I'm nailing it. And it turns out that's actually not what they want. They don't want more humor, maybe. Maybe they don't want more numbers. Maybe they want more humor. Maybe they want more numbers, but I don't know. Right? And it's really, really challenging. And I think Siege is a very challenging esport to observe. It's very hard to cast. It's very hard to understand. And all of those things make it so sometimes we get it wrong. But I've listened to CS casts that I've hated as well. And I've listened to League casts that I've hated as well. There are certain CS and League casters that I mute as well, just like there are Rainbow Six pros who mute me. It doesn't upset me, right? I think all you can really do is you can be honest with yourself, solicit feedback as much as possible, get feedback from your contemporaries, get people who are good at their jobs, who know what they're doing, and ask them to VOD review with you or to give you that assessment, an honest assessment on your abilities, and then slowly work to improve. Because that's really the only way to stay at the top of your game, frankly. And I think Siege casting has made leaps and bounds. I think it's improved a ton. But I mean, hell, I listened back to some casts I did a couple weeks ago. And there were multiple things I noted where I was like, I can do this better. I can do that better. Too many numbers on this round. Not enough exposition on this round. Too many jokes on this round. Not enough proper play-by-play. Not enough hype on this moment. Like, I note that stuff and I write it down. And Jesse has been working really hard to keep me honest as well, so that we are continuing to improve. So I think Siege casting has come a long way. I think it is a brutally hard game to cast. I think we do a very good job with what we're given. I think our LAN casts are a lot better for a number of reasons. Yes, the spectator reason is a big one, but also because stakes are higher. And we're also in person. It is so much easier to read your duo when you can literally look and boom, Jesse is right here. And I can make hand gestures and stuff like that versus just being online, right? And you talk to casters in Valorant, you talk to casters in League, you talk to casters in Call of Duty, CS, they're all going to say the same thing. So, but I feel like this is a good endpoint now for us to kind of turn towards another topic, which was that, I was going to talk about the T2 drama just very briefly, but you can jump in.
I can segue to that, but I had closing thoughts.
Closing thought it up.
Closing thoughts, yeah. I think a good wrap up to everything we've said is foil, is juxtaposition, is signal to noise ratio, right? Like, I think like everyone's point here is like, you know, the more you contrast things, the more they stand out. If you want your legendary moment, you can't just spam legendary moments and then expect your legendary moment to make its break. It has to be beset on all sides with unlegendary moments. You can't just have hype throughout the entire game and then expect one of the hypes to be more hype than the other. No, you have to have unhype besetting hype, right? I think that's what I make of the criticism thing and the negativity thing. That's really it for me. That was my main point, is that it's fine to say something's bad. It's bad to say something's bad all the time, you know? Back to back to back to back. And I know it's like a moving goalpost almost, because it's like the Oregoner that we're about to talk about in T2 is saying the same thing that Marco said back during that Beast Coast exit game. I'm just speaking about it now, right? Where it's like, oh, back then what Kicks did great was it was a very hype build up to why are you sprinting, because it was, right, relative to today, at least in my eyes. When I go back and watch it, and I went back and watched that game right before this podcast to study on it, during the time, it was viewed as a very negative broadcast. Right now, I look back at it, and it feels very hype compared to now. So I don't know. For me, it's like the baseline is you always want to build suspense. No matter what it takes to build suspense, you always want to build it. And that's why, for me, positive does outweigh. Like, if you were to be everything, like, if you were to be one thing the whole time, yeah. I think, like, worst case scenario, you can only be one thing the whole time. That's just how it is. Positive beats negative, because the moment you're negative the whole time, then the reason to watch the game is gone. The feel of the game is gone. The legitimacy is gone. And it's like, why are we watching Pro League? We're here to watch the best in the world. You know, we're not here to watch bums, right? So, yeah, I think that's how it is. I think that's why I think Dez and Ace get their praises sang a lot. They do have a lot of goofy moments where it's like, whatever. But I think they're very consistent in the fact that they can always build suspense. And yeah, I think the other big thing is just contrast, signal to noise ratio. Siege is a game that, like you said, is finding its identity. And it's like there's so many different games out there that we can look at when we look at Siege. Like you said, NBA is always action. So maybe we can't be like NBA. I wasn't saying to always call it as it is. I was just saying, like, if you don't know what to say, you don't need to look for, you don't need to look for the bad. Right? That's
Right.
Sometimes I feel like the problem is we look for the bad. There has to be a horrible mistake made by the team that lost the last round every single time they lose a round. Sometimes that feels like that to me. Right? Versus, like, I think that's the opposite of calling a spade, right? Like, making it something it's not, like we said earlier, is not only making the bad good, but also making the normal bad for no reason, right?
Yeah.
But on the other side, it's like, do we make our game like chess, where it's like every mistake is a massively calculated but miscalculated blunder, And I don't necessarily think that's appropriate either, because we're esport. We're not chess where they're sitting there quiet. Oh, it's so, it's so calculated. And it's also so hard to understand from a visual standpoint, where it's like, the chess casters are probably like thrown half their life away being a chess pro, like semi-pro at some point, whereas a siege caster is like they've probably got other gigs, and the game is just so hard. Like the steep. There's not siege books out there for free, right? Like you almost have to try to become pro to even touch the start of that learning curve that is siege beyond ranked, which is run around, shoot people, reinforce walls. That's it, So chess, maybe not. Look at other games, right? I think one of the best examples of a competitive platform that's like could be modeled Siege off of is Formula One, right? Where it's like, dude, the best drivers in the world will straight up crash their entire car, and that'll just happen, and Twitter will blow up, and it's like, Max Verstappen just fucking blew up his car. That guy just fucked over the whole racetrack, right? And that'll happen. But even in that sport, it's like the community's very casual. The casters are super serious. Overtake, he's lost it, into the wall, boom, right? But then you have games like Melee, like Super Smash Bros, where it's just ridiculously informal. Wombo combo, get your ass beat, he just unplugged his controller. You gotta pack up your bags and leave, bro. That's
FGC is deliberately like that, and
Yeah,
that's part of the beauty of FGC is that they
Yeah.
are so casual.
Yeah. So there's so many different identities, and like you said, I think Siege is still just trying to find its own. But I think that starts with a conversation like this, and and it's not like someone like me, at least, I don't know about the community, but it's not like someone like me can never be pleased, because like I said, with Lynx, with you, after we had those conversations, I noticed a remarkably increase in viewer enjoyment in my stream, in the main broadcast stream, and from me, where it's like there were rounds where Lynx was fairly criticizing or unfairly criticizing, but then rounds where a player dies and maybe loses his team the round, but Lynx is like, well, hold on a second, like you said earlier, they could have made that mistake because of this. And there's so much to think about. And that's why Siege is such a beautiful, complex game. And I think that made it really enjoyable when Link started doing that as a habit. So, yeah, silver lining. I think conversations like this keep pushing the game forward. I think it's necessary to continue to try to find that identity, so that when we inevitably do, maybe it'll be one of the shining paradigms of this game, as Kickstarter once was. Because let's be real, he made this game as great as it was during its peak, right? Like, guy's just that fucking talented.
Yeah.
So yeah, but speaking of shifting goalposts, similar conversation with the
That was
similar
great.
conversation. That crazy segue. What? Similar conversation that Marco had with the XZ Beast Coast game. Now we have a T2 org owner saying the same thing about a CAS that happened in Element 6.
Do you remember who it was? I don't know who any of these people are. As we talked about on the show last week, my knowledge of T2 ball is very low.
5 fears.
5 years. Yep.
5 fears.
So basically, for people who need to know, we're going to, just for the sake of time here, because we've already talked the casting thing, we actually spent longer talking about this casting thing than I thought, but that's good.
Yes.
In the spirit of keeping us a little on track, I know that there were some YouTube comments being like, when you guys get rolling, don't change topics just for the sake of time, but unfortunately for the show, we kind of have to. Basically, there was an org owner that basically said, like, the T2 casters were doing a very poor job and that they, were failing at their job, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it invoked a big response from a number of people in the T2 scene. Ferme, who's running Element, basically chimed in and was like, DM me. And I actually was streaming the other day. I've started streaming more frequently. And JJ Blast actually stopped by my stream. And I asked him about it because I know he's been doing a lot of T2 stuff. And JJ Blast, obviously from Team Envy, for those that know, really animated fellow, one of the newer faces of the NA League, and then a guy who's, I think, is just going to keep growing in reputation, and might actually be joining us for an upcoming show. If he's available, he'd be great to have on. But basically, he said that a lot of the T2 casters are very informal, and a lot of the casting that happens in T2 is very casual. And Jazzman was also in my stream, who's also a caster, and basically said that, like, it's not as professional as T1 by design. So obviously the casting is not going to be as professional as T1, which I am fine with. I used to cast Siege Contender Series to 10 people. I used to cast, CCS to 50, 70 people. I get it. I know what like community level casts are. I get that. And for fuck's sakes, I helped do the qualifier cast where we were talking about penises and stuff. Like, I know what like casual casts look like, but Element 6 is fashioning itself in a way where it's the T2 scene. Those casters need to be casting like every match is a tryout for them to get yanked up to tier 1. Because in a lot of ways, that's what it is. When guys when people start retiring or people start moving on, or maybe somebody good comes up, where do you think they're going to get pulled from? They're going to get pulled from T2. And I will tell you that I've watched a lot of T2 casts across a wide variety of esports. I hate to reference CS again, but the CS casts are very polished for T2. League of Legends, very polished for T2 for the most part. A lot of Rainbow Six T2 and T3 casts are brutally casual, and I think it's kind of off-putting. And it's not that it's not like the casters are not good. It's just that I think what happens is that a lot of the T2 casters are really deeply immersed in the T2 scene. So a lot of the people they're casting are their friends. And because of that, they kind of cast like they're co-streaming a bunch of pals instead of doing their actual job, which is being the faces and voices of what might be the second most important league outside of tier 1 in our entire esport. And it's really tough to balance those, especially if you're a younger person, especially if you're inexperienced, because you're going to want to be a bit chummy and you're going to want to like say players' names and stuff like that. I did that when I was a starting caster too. And you know what happened? I had a couple more experienced casters be like, that's bad, knock it off. So all I will say is that this conversation happened because some of them were getting a little bit too mean and a little bit too critical, which goes back to your point about like, saying like, oh, that, Shaiko, you're a clown, whatever. You should really never be saying that. You should never be personally attacking the players. You should never be calling their character into question, nothing like that. What you need to do is you need to structure any criticism, even if it is the most brain dead thing you've seen in your entire life. You need to criticize it in a way that is still professional and gives you some covering fire. Because like David said, it's not about you. It's not about you making your moment. It's not about you flaming players. You are there to elevate the broadcast. You are there to elevate the players, and you are there to put on a product that a lot of other people are working on. Producers are working on, observers are working on, replay people are working on, the players are working on it. And then you to belittle and denigrate it by trying to be funny or have your big moment. Unfortunately, it does a big disservice to not just yourself, but everybody else involved. So it doesn't matter what level of caster you are. I think this is good advice for everybody. And it's act like you've been there. Cast like you've been at the top. Like, aspire to be better. That doesn't mean you can't make jokes. You can make jokes. That doesn't mean you can't condemn bad plays. You can. That doesn't mean you can't lose your mind every now and then when something mind-numbingly stupid happens. You can do that too. I've done that. I crashed out on Team Liquid like at SI a year and a half ago. Like, you're allowed to do that, but you have to pick your moments and pick your spots. And I'd urge anybody doing it, don't lose your voice, don't lose your character, but most importantly, don't lose sight of your goal, which is to be the voice of something that is very important to a lot of people, and you need to act like it. This is not directed at anybody in particular. It's not directed at any casters. So if anybody's trying to like look for a subtweet or anything, it's not there. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't even know most of the people who cast T2. So I couldn't even name who was involved in that broadcast. But all I'm saying is just Be professional. You can make jokes, you can do all that stuff, but at the end of the day, be professional. Rise to the level of the league and the job that you are working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
what?
oh,
God,
sorry.
God, Fett.
No,
take
I'm
it
so
away.
sorry.
Oh,
Blue
okay.
Jays are up, I think, by the way. I'm pretty
3-1, baby.
Okay, spoiler.
Sorry. So we're gonna watch it back or do a VOD
No.
review it later?
Hey guys, I'm gonna be frank with you. I have it on my other monitor, so it's okay.
I
You
knew.
think I'm
I
missing
see
it,
the
man?
I see the
Why
eye
don't you-
like
wait, why don't you
as
throw
I'm
up a little
talking.
Discord stream? I'm kidding. I'm joking.
I can stream it here. You guys want?
No. It would fuck up David's overlay.
Yeah.
Sadly. But yeah, I think it's actually a phenomenon that I also encountered when I started T3 casting way back in the day. And
Did not know that.
I also thought like, oh, the people want funny and casual, and they're like, knock that off. Talk about the fucking game, bro. But yeah, I also think it's like a phenomenon of like, it's really interesting you bring that up. It's like it's like much because I haven't been paying attention to it at a T2 level. But it's really funny you bring that up because I think people mistakenly have a lot of fond memories attached to co-streams, right? Like when Super and Canadian and everyone were in that one call together in that one SI quals, and it's like, what the fuck are they doing?
You just leave me out. You leave me out of it, by the way.
You there?
Yeah, sorry, and Intero.
Sorry, it's on my channel, by the way. Sorry, just leave me out of it.
I don't
I
recall
might have been
that.
there. I
Go
might have
check
been there.
it out on Intero's channel. Go get him some watch time and ad revenue. I'm so sorry.
97 Dream Team, 92 Dream Team, whatever.
Whoa, 90s. No, have some respect.
I think people have
It's
a lot
97
of-
now. It's been 5 years.
Yeah, I think people have a lot of their fondest memories of watching Siege attached to moments like those, or when Super's ripping into a team, or when JJ Blast is ripping into a team, and they mistakenly think that's what the people want out of a broadcast, And
Yeah.
I think it's one of those moments where it's like understanding your role, It's like not really your place, but more like the role you play in the broader ecosystem. Like if I'm an entry frag, or the people want me to entry frag, if I'm a support player or a caster, I think the people want more so, like you said, the professionalism. Like you're here to build suspense. You're not here to have a grand old time. I also think another like thing, because like the problem you're bringing up is like, oh my god, there's so much like mystery and downtime and like ball knowledge like bar that like, what do we do with this time? And then people will default to that chumminess to fill in that time, right? I actually think I want to ask you about this. I want your thoughts about this, because what if we open the floor to more questioning? Like, what if we, like, the casting conversation was, hold on a minute, like, why did that player do that move? Why did they reinforce the wall this way? You don't think it really works out? Because that's what happens in my analyses, or at least when I'm even making new strats. Like, if I'm studying multiple teams making like strats, and I'm looking for quirky reinforcement adjustments away from the defaults, and like, utility placements away from the defaults. Hang on a minute. Why did FaZe put their castle here instead of the default other position that they usually put it? Let's think. What angle does it open up? Okay, it opens that angle. Oh, they wanna get a long angle over here. There's one game where W7M 7-1 SSG on Nighthaven, and they had the complete non-default wrong rotates in Nighthaven rafters, and they had all of bottom Nighthaven garage all castled off. I was like, oh my god, why are they doing that? And then later in the round, they had a super long angle from garage all the way down into garden, because the garden wall was also reinforced on the wrong side to open up that long pixel angle. Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, eureka, right? So I wonder, like, does it work in a professional casting level, or just no?
Mint wanted to talk. You had your hand up.
I was agreeing with the point of, because I tried to hammer it home earlier with the why. Like, that is the biggest question that I think Siege almost has, because of all our nuances that we have above every other game, is we have so much to talk about with why. That's all I talk about in my co-streams too, is why they did this, why they did that. Like, they're not pro players getting paid, I'm not going to say the salaries, but however much they are.
Six chicken nuggets.
Yeah, basically. Some G Fuel packets.
Chipotle meatballs.
A Zowie mouse pad.
Anyway, they're not under contracts like swinging something just because they feel like it. Like, that's not going to go over well with the GM and the whatever. Like, it's professional in a team. Like, there's always reasons why. So I also agree. I feel like there's so much to talk about with just that.
I think the big thing that I come down on is that we are supposed to be experts. That's why we're doing the job we're doing, right? Like a lot of the viewers are going to see why something happens on the screen and go, why did he put that castle barricade there? If the casters are saying the same thing, it doesn't look like we know what we're talking about, right? I think there is a time and a place where you see something weird and you go, what am I looking at? And we've done that. Like I've done that before where somebody pulls out a really bizarre strat and you're just like, what is this? But I think if you're doing it frequently, it looks bad. And there have been casters in the past, I'm not naming any of them. There have been casters in the past who spend half of the game being like, I'm not really sure why they're doing this, or like, I'm not really sure why they're doing that. And it's like, you are supposed to be the expert. You can say like, this is a unique one, but it's, and then explain it, but it's how you package it, right? Like there's a big difference between being like, why did they put that castle barricade there? Oh, they put the, blah, blah, blah. I do that to Jesse from time to time. I'll be like, why did they do this? And it's just teeing up Jesse to go off and explain it if we don't have a more elegant way of packaging it. But I think if you're an average viewer and you're like, why is that? And then I explain it, or Jesse explains it, or Ace or Dez explain it, or like Guz or Xenox or Dev or Pengu or Fluke or Lynx or whomever explains it. Like, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, thank you for imparting that knowledge upon me. Like, that's important. But if I'm constantly being like, why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? I think it makes for a poor broadcast. It makes you look kind of foolish, like you're not an expert. For certain things, you might see something and you might not have seen it before, but maybe somebody else has. And if you say, why is that like that? You get flamed, or people will then rightly say like, hey, you know, like this is actually pretty common. Like, you know, like, why are you surprised by this? And then we look foolish. So it's really important that when you are casting, you are the expert. Your goal, among many, is to explain to people why things are happening. It's not to ask questions. If you are repeatedly finding yourself asking questions, you either need to change up how you're casting or you have to learn more about the game. Because there are very few things in Siege that we've never seen before, period. There's parts that might be small changes, but like we've seen teams try to go to unconventional bomb sites before. We've seen like full roams. We've seen, you know, one person on the site while everybody else is on the top floor. We've seen unconventional stuff quite regularly. But you kind of have to act like you know exactly what's going on all the time. And if you do have genuine questions, you have to ask them in a way that makes it seem like you actually know the answer. Even if you don't know the answer, you have to make it seem like you know the answer, because if you don't know the answer and you openly say that, then frankly, why don't you know? You know, like that's for co-streams. And another point, there's only so much we can talk about on the desk. There's only so much we can talk about in a live cast. There's a lot of stuff that we just cannot get into because we don't have time and we have to focus on other things. That's why co-streams are good, because you guys can get into the granular of a round. Mint can spend 3 full rounds of action talking about round 4. Round 5, still talking about round 4. Round 6, still talking about round 4. We cannot do that as casters. We have to move on. So that's why co-streams are great, like supplementary content, because they are there to entertain, but also to educate you in ways that we are just simply not able to do with the window of time that we have from round to round.
Yeah. Then to your point then, because I was approaching a lot of like what I thought what the solutions were from the standpoint of, hey, casters typically don't get the opportunity to pursue a really competitive career, therefore I'll give them a break on the lack of ball knowledge at times. Would you say it's almost more fair to expect more ball knowledge then? Because like sometimes it's like you'll criticize because, oh, how could the team not have known this? But they obviously know it. There's a different archetype of strat maybe, and there's just more nuance. Then that's the lack of ball knowledge and the fact that it's more nuance. So do you think it's more fair to get, you know, it's more fair to say, hey, go learn the game more, as opposed to, hey, why don't you, if you don't know the game, then why don't you try doing this instead?
I mean, I think, and I include myself in this, I don't think there is a single caster in Siege who's not named Pengu that can openly say, I don't need to know more about this game. I'm being frank. I think the only caster in Siege right now who can very safely say, I'm good, is Nick. Every other person who touches this game can know more about the way that the game works on a macro and a micro level. And it's not just about getting to a certain point, it's constantly learning because the game is constantly changing. This was a conversation actually that Kix had ages and ages and ages ago, where people would be like, it's so good to have a former pro talk about the game. But Kix would admit, he's like, every single season that goes on that you are removed from playing, the farther your knowledge goes away from you.
Yeah.
He's like, you learn less the longer you're out of it. Like if Troy retired tomorrow and went into casting, I think his knowledge of the game would be just as good, if not probably better than Nick's. But then if Troy decided to be a caster for the next 3 years and JJ Blast retires in 3 years' time, JJ's knowledge would be more relevant and would be more recent. And it's really just because unless you're sitting in scrims, unless you're still playing, unless you're keeping up with what teams are doing, unless you're in those scrims actually seeing what teams are doing, you're not getting the complete picture. You're not getting that vantage point. You're going off of what you knew, but the game changes so frequently that it's hard work to keep up with it. People like me, people like Jesse, we've never competed at a pro level. So the hill for us to climb is even steeper, but we can get to a point where we are comfortable enough to hang. We know ball to a certain extent. Jesse and I still have miles to improve on ball knowledge. Every caster except for Pengu does. Pengu is the only caster where he will see things and immediately call it out, like Tony Romo, I think who you mentioned on the cast, or you mentioned on the show, Mint. Was it you?
Mm-hmm.
Talked about Tony Romo. Pengu can see things happening a mile away, and he's incredible.
Yep.
Pengu's strength is his game knowledge. He knows exactly what's going to happen, but Pengu still struggles with the same thing that we all do, which is picking your battles. Nick, like every other caster, has to choose, what do I talk about? How long do I talk about it? What do I focus on? That is ultimately the harder part of casting. The knowledge of the game is tough, but you can get a cursory knowledge, a surface level take of the game and stretch it really far and impress a lot of people because you're a good caster, not because you're a good player. But if you're a really, really good player who knows everything about the game, you now have the hard job of figuring out, what do I talk about? When do I talk about it? How do I make it palatable and understandable for a wider audience? How do I make it so experts can understand it, but also beginners can too? And most importantly, how do I work that into a broadcast so that it's entertaining? And that's something that you have to go through the motions of. And the more experience you get, just like being a player, those mechanics become secondary and you don't need to think about them much. So it's always a balancing act, right? Nick does not have the same level of experience as most casters from a broadcast perspective, but his knowledge crushes all of us. It's a trade-off. And eventually you have to get to a point where you're comfortable with both. Like I said, I am included in this group. We can all know ball a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not just playing the game too. Like you have to be in the inner circles. But I'd be curious to know what Nick or Pengu would say too, with him being out of the game, because I've seen him even filling in. If it seems like he knows exactly what's going on, even though he retired years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And like I do understand, what Kix's point was with being away from the game, but for me, at least personally, I feel like I've been away from the game just about a year. Well, no, Boston was at February. We're coming up on here. I feel like I know the game more because I watch about every single game, every single region. I know and understand the metas, the play styles really, really well. I feel like if I went back, I'd be better than I was. Not that I want to go back.
Better as a player or better as a coach?
Coach. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. You guys don't watch me on my.
Yeah.
Don't watch me when I'm trying to play the game. No, it's complete. I don't know if Fett ever dealt with the same thing where you're peeking angles and you're like, why am I peeking an angle? I would coach someone to not peek that angle. You know what I mean? But, yeah, I don't know. Fett, do you have anything on that last point before I go back to teaching for a second here?
The further removed thing is so incredibly real, and that's why I like shit on myself so much, because I literally feel the takes that I invented that felt so cool when I was competing become standard and then overtake it. Like, what the fuck is this new Nighthaven take? We were undefeated on this map. Now they're hitting every single angle at once. Crazy, It's like I feel myself aging. I feel like I'm in the behind. And it's really, really funny that you say that like Pengu is like, encompasses like the ball knowledge, because and listen, okay.
Uh-oh.
I've been on a podcast with Pengu. I've had YouTube videos with Pengu. I love Pengu, but when I was
Disclaimer.
competing, the general pro POV of Pengu was this guy's old. What is he talking about?
This guy's
Like,
what?
like this guy's
Old.
old. What is he talking about? Like all his takes were like cemented in dinosaur time. And so for example, Shaiko 35 IQ, right? Like that was a big
yeah.
big like
Nick is
contention
not
point.
immune to hot takes. Okay,
Yeah,
let's
he's
just
got-
let's put it that
Those
way.
aren't even. Yeah.
No, but I tried to bridge the gap with the people saying like, hey, back
people.
in his time,
Mhm.
you know, your entry fraggers were people that probably didn't know how to speak words, and you had this one god dictator just puppet master control. No, but that's the rules back then, right? Like that was literally the rules back then. Kanto
I know,
Kenny
I
was
know.
known calm challenging on G2, like prime G2, and that was like expected. Versus now, like everyone needs to talk, otherwise you're a dog shit player, right? Like so, it's like it evolves so much. Like the golden of your time becomes the default of tomorrow so incredibly fast. Where it's like I'll joke sometimes that like I'm very rapidly approaching Penguism, where it's like the things that I keep emphasizing about teams, they're probably watching and being like, well, we learned this in 8th grade. Like we learned this in T3. What the fuck are you talking about? Why do you keep saying this? We already learned this 17 years ago. But you know, a lot of things still remain. Like a lot of the fundamental like character traits and a lot of the fundamental siege traits do still remain. Like I say 60 to 80%, but like the remaining 40 to 20%, I am fully dinosaur. I'm fully fossilizing. Like I call it BK. I said BKL multiple times. Ball knowledge loss. It's rapidly draining from me. I don't know what. I'm very impressed by men, you know, saying he could go back because I could not. I would go into that shit and I'd be
Really?
like, wow, dude. Even but also I come from a different angle where like I'm doing science for most of the day.
Yeah.
And then
there
I'll
we go.
come back and
There we
watch
go.
one game, and then I'll go
Yeah.
back to doing more science. But at the same time, dude, if you told me to come up with a triple ban plan, I would just shit myself and walk out of the room. Like I don't know. I don't even know. Like I don't know.
With the new
I would
ban
get
system?
overwhelmed. Yeah, I would get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Like I'd lose my fucking mind. It makes
I do
sense when
think you got a
watch
lot
it,
going on.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's anyone quite as busy as you are, and you're trying to still be entertaining and watch Siege. But like, I'm literally watching every single game and
Yeah.
trying to analyze it and make sense. Which, going back to your point, Parker, I do want to touch on before I sound like a fraud and someone goes, "Why did Mint say that?" When I was saying about the whys, by the way, I was saying as a caster, you guys, and which you said perfectly, you guys should explain, not you guys going, "Well, why are they doing that? Why are they doing that?" I don't think a cast should be doing that, of course. Okay, so I want to cover my tracks on
I was
that.
the only one that was saying it in the bad way, chat. That was me.
Yeah, take that, Fat.
I take full
Wow.
ownership of the bad take. Everyone else is
Okay.
very smart.
Because I agree. I agree. I will hear. It actually usually comes from the T2 scene, or it comes from a Lynx game that I watched, which was, well, why are they lurking underneath, or what are they doing? You know, and it's just like, well, if I pause for a second, I can break down what they're doing. But that's what co-streams are for, right? We can get more analytical. I wanted to quickly talk about the T2 action again for just a second because, you know, we talked about the casters, which you wordsmith perfectly put that it should be like them trying out for a tier 1 team, just like a tier 2 player shouldn't be playing casually. I'm just swinging things because I'm casual, right? I'm on Doc A cup. Well, not anymore, but because, you know, I'm just hanging out with the boys. You know what I mean? Like, you're literally trying out and you're playing an element and you're playing a T2 leagues. This is your combine. You should be playing to try to make T1. So obviously casting anywhere in life, anywhere in jobs, this should apply. You should be giving it your all. It shouldn't be just casual. So I fully agree with your point. But going on to the production too, because they brought up as well with production wise, maybe it's a little bit different. I still don't understand like why it's on the official R6 stream. I don't know if you guys have noticed, Fett noticed. I feel like the stream's more pixelated when I'm watching T2. It just feels like I'm watching a worse product when I'm watching a tier 1 stream versus when I'm watching the official tier 2 broadcasts. It's very pixelated. We're not catching any of the action, which again, I know we're getting different observers for tier 2. Same applies to them as well, trying to be what they can be and try to make their way to the T1 leagues. I would wish. I mean, tier 2, those guys are probably working for chicken nuggets as well. Can we get more of them somehow?
I don't know if they're getting paid at all. They should be, but I don't know if they are.
I agree. But it's like, if they are there for the passion, why can we not get more and try to cover some more action? I don't know.
I mean,
I did.
it's run by, I think it's run by Nerd Street, or at
Okay.
least it's run by Firmhay's company, and he
Okay.
works with Nerd Street. So I don't know the full like apparatus. I don't think it's being run out of the Nerd Street studio.
Right.
So that could be why, but I'm not sure.
Okay. I definitely agree with the buddy thing. Where, you know, it's constant like jokes and stuff instead of trying to be a professional tier 1 caster. And then the biggest thing to me too is also like there is so much of a break in between games. You're telling me we got nothing to talk about, that we're going to throw a timer on. Hey, be right back. We'll see you guys in 47 minutes. What? 47 minutes? You think I'm going to keep my co-stream on for 47 minutes? I'll see you later. Like, I'm going to go do something else. Like, people are not going to watch and stick around for tier 2 gameplay. Like, I wish there's some format or something they did that it could be a little bit better, or they at least had segments very similar to tier 1. Like, give these guys an opportunity to speak on some things and highlight players and whatever else it is. Like, there's got to be something we could do in between to like get people involved, because tier 2 is the future, right? We got to start making some storylines or something in tier 2. I feel like we're not giving them like a fair shake. Like, I thankfully have never been in tier 2, but I feel like what they're getting is like they're not being able to be spotlighted at all.
I do know that we have lengthy ad breaks in the T1 leagues because we have to run a set amount of ads, and I know that is a factor. So I don't think though that would affect, like, certainly not 47 minutes.
Oh, it's been some long ones, yeah.
It could. Is it possible that they're just on a fixed schedule, and if the games go quickly, then they end up farther and farther behind? Because I know we've done that too. Like, we've had events where we do rolling schedules, where it's just like the moment the game is done, we just launch into the next one. And there's pros and cons of the system, right? Like, the rolling schedule is great because it gets everybody home faster and the day is over quicker, and teams aren't sitting around, and we're not getting tired. And it's like, I'll tell you as a caster, like, there are times where it's like I'll have 3 hours between matches, and it's like I just watch my energy deplete. But then people will turn around and say, well, the benefit of a fixed schedule is that if the match is at 8 o'clock, I know it's at 8 o'clock, and I'll tune in at 8 o'clock. Like, there's pros and cons to both. Is it possible that T2 is on like a fixed schedule and just some games go really quickly?
I think it is a fixed schedule, but I mean, at least for me, would argue that I feel like rolling is going to be a little bit better than sitting on a huge break with no game to watch as we're kind of waiting for something. But
I think for T2 it needs to be rolling.
I could
you gotta get that shit done.
You tell a family member, hey, we're playing or something. Cool. Like, they know they could watch at 8 o'clock.
I think we could also get on players' asses. I think a lot of it also has to do with the players getting into the lobby on time. Like, I think we could get on players' I think
this
big part
is a huge problem with NA, man.
Yeah, but there's some times where I do feel like schedule is very beneficial. Like, I remember, like, you know, like, I saw the schedule for Invite, and it was a BO3, and each BO3 was projected to last an hour and a half. And I was like, what the fuck? Or not an hour and a half. Each BO3 was projected to last 3 hours and a half. Sorry, this was the opposite. I'm okay with it being an earlier schedule to where if I show up at this time, I can still catch the game that I want to catch, versus I show up at the time and the game happened 2 games ago. What the hell? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. So I think there's benefits to both, but I think for the most part, it's just getting on players' asses. Also, I want to call you out, Kyle. DZ, notorious for fucking time torching, getting into lobby. Fuck you guys. Every single game we ever played, you guys were late to the lobby. Yes, every single one. Yes, yes. Anyways, I know. They
don't call him P-Bazoo for nothing, man.
No, I'm probably negative confirmation biasing, but yeah, I the thing I will say about Element is that I think a lot of people forget where Element came from. Where Element was literally a passion project spawned in by Firmay.
Yeah.
By the sheer amount of talent that he has by himself.
Yeah.
Right? Like if Firmay didn't exist, there would be no Elements. There would be no other tier 2 competition other than a yearly challenger series. In fact, there would have been no tier 2 at all for like the past like 2 or 3 years that they like basically canceled tier 2 since 2022. So, like, I will give Firmay a break on the production quality of tier 2. I think it's amazing for what he can do, but I'm pretty sure the reason for the bitrate is because, like, T1 is being streamed from, like, a studio or, like, a super PC, and I think T2, I'm pretty sure...
T2's from studios. They're all from studios.
It's from a studio? Oh, I thought it was from a dude's
Tier
computer.
1?
No. I'm saying T2, tier 2.
I
thought
don't know where
some
I don't know
guy's
where tier 2 is
PC.
being
'Cause
streamed
I've
from. I was
seen-
going to say
I've-
T1 is all of the
Yeah,
main
yeah.
4 leagues are casted from like professional studios.
Yeah, so T1 Studios
Yeah.
versus tier 2, I'm pretty sure is just some dude's PC. Like just like some dude's home
Yeah.
PC.
Mhm.
So maybe that's why. So
Yep.
I do want to cut a break for Ferme because I've been talking with Ferme throughout my come up the whole time, and I remember someone saying like, are we serious? We're gonna pull community volunteer casters again for tier 2 Siege?
Right.
When are we gonna make the fucking standards better? Like, how did we fall so far? And I was like, well, I understand that it's valid, but you gotta remember, I don't think Element was ever paid. Like, I don't think. I forgot what the point was, but like I was like, I actually do remember Element, like the Element series, having always been volunteer passion work. So I'm not too sure.
Challenger League was never paid for ESL. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of esports that pay their T2 scene anything. Like a lot of it is just labor of love.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's part of the problem is that there isn't much funding for T2, which sucks because you need a strong T2 scene to have a strong T1 scene. Every esport has gone through the same problem where they underfund T2 and then the wheels kind of fall off and then they realize too late, whoopsies. And, so I don't know. I know that Element is a passion project from Ferme and he does a great job, but I mean, he's got bigger fish to fry. I don't know how much of the day-to-day he does with Element 6 because he's busy running the NA League. And frankly, that's where his focus should be, right? Like all of his energy should be going to the NA League. Like if I believe he's got a production company. I know he's got guys that he works with because I've worked with them when they've come to events and run like the B stream. I think they ran the B stream at Boston, if memory serves correctly. And they're really talented guys, but a lot of them are younger and they're still gaining experience. And honestly, giving them Element 6 and letting them take the helm, I think is terrific. So I'm liking this conversation. But we're at like an hour and 45.
Heard.
And as I say this, Trey Savage just set a World Series record for his 12th strikeout for a rookie.
Wow.
12th strikeout in one game. World Series record, baby. 11 was the record before. Most strikeouts in a single game by a rookie in the World Series. Oh, anyway. I want to get into 2 things that involve Project Prisma, because they're both pretty cool, and then we can skate through them really quickly if that's okay with you guys, unless there is some burning point you have about the caster T2 thing.
Nope.
I'm
Just shout out again the Whiskey guys because I do appreciate the community casters. Whiskey Run,
Yep.
Whiskey Glitter. I think they're phenomenal. And then also shout out High Bear. I think for the first time he's been casting T2. I don't know.
He's
but I
barely
actually think-
Canadian. So
I think he's actually been doing a really good job, by the way, for the T2 cast that I've listened
Jesse
to.
loves High Bear. I don't know much about High Bear, but Jesse glazes High Bear all the time.
Yeah, very good competitive content on YouTube. I'll plug him in there. But I also think, again, what he's been doing is kind of what I've been trying to do in co-streams. I think he's able to put it into words and put it on the cast, and I think it's been cool to hear in T2. So positivity. We'll end on positivity for the T2.
Positivity, mate.
All right.
Can't be all
now-
criticism. Got to be positive.
All right. Let's turn our focus to 2 things that are happening. So, number one, my good friend Jesse J. Chick has approached me about a fantasy league that I know some of you have done before. I know it's been done at a couple events. Have either of you guys ever done the Project Prisma fantasy?
I've
league
always
stuff?
wanted to. I was
I
never
did it-
invited.
I did it when it was just like a Discord call, and then you tracked it on
Oh.
Twitter, and I picked all APAC players, and I got the worst score.
Wow, I wonder why that happened.
You picked the superior region and you lost? What?
I picked like the Asian guys gotta pick Asians. I mean, I don't know why everyone's.
Well,
hating
I didn't
Asians.
say that.
So for those of you that are curious about this, and this is a call to action because I did like no calls to action on the last episode and comments were way down. So it turns out that you, the viewer, yes, you, I'm talking to you right now. I need to tell you to say things in the comments section. So the first call to action is going to come in an hour and 49 minutes into the show.
Yeah, they're asleep.
Yeah, they're asleep at this point. Nobody's gonna heed this call at all. Nobody's picking up the phone. So number one,
Dodgers
what we're
fans.
going to do is we want you to get involved in Project Prisma's Fantasy League. So in the description of this video, and that means for those of you that are listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, if you want to do this, you're going to have to come over to the YouTube people. You're going to have to be a YouTube person for a second here. And you're going to need to see the description of the video. To be honest with you, I don't know if we can actually put it in the description for the other two, but I'm not a technical guy. That's up to producer David. But there is going to be a link to the fantasy league where you're going to log in. We all use Discord integration, just so when you get to the page, it's going to tell you to either create an account or to log in using Discord. I believe we all use Discord. I use Discord. Mint, I think you did as well.
Yup.
Fet, I think, might have done it too. So basically, the link is going to take you to do a fantasy team, and where you get to pick 5 players and then a coach. And then what you're going to do is there's going to say like sub league / join league. You're going to click that button. Once your team is picked, you're going to click that button on fantasy, and you're going to type in 6on6, no spaces, SIXON6, and it's going to put you in the 6on6 league. You can pick any 5 players you want, and then you get to pick a coach. Producer David, if you could put up on the screen our teams. I decided to go with fraggers because the last time that I did a fantasy pick'em for the NA League, I tried a well-rounded team. I picked like roamers and I picked like support and it was a disastrous idea because apparently it's just they only care about fragging. I know that there's categories here. I didn't read any of them because this is just mostly for fun. My team is Shaiko, Spoit, Gunner, JV92, and Reaps. We've got 1 player from all 4 of the regions. And then I guess technically you could argue that you've got Spoit as the extra because Gunner, obviously a North American from North America, Shaiko, European from Europe, JV92, Brazilian from Brazil, Reaps, Asian from Asia. And then I just decided to throw in Spoit. So,
Asian from Asia.
Yeah.
why do you take issue with that one, but not the North American from North America?
Yeah, that's messed up.
Come on, man. Those are my pick'ems. Those are my picks. Mint, do you want to run through your team?
Yes.
Fet, do you want to run through yours? Go through.
You go ahead,
So-
Mint.
Oh, I'll take it. I'll take it from here. Well, so I didn't learn my lesson, and I did pick a well-rounded team. So I would like to revert back now. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm dialing in.
You just picked up a team as if like you were
Yes.
an Oregoner. Yeah.
Yes, I'm an Oregoner. Of course, we got Igor, in my opinion, the greatest coach in Siege. Like, this guy is the GOAT. He's the founder of the current meta that we're in. Why wouldn't I want Igor? Okay, Furia is they're going to be winning games. So he's getting me points. And then because we got the coach from there, we're still going to get a player from there. We're going to go JV92 because he's the vibe guy. This is the guy that is he's not getting any points for it, unfortunately, but he's cracking jokes and he's playing the mailbox support role. We got hot and cold, so we can get a little shield there. That might be my duo. This might be a completely biased pick, but he's a fragger. He can shoot. He's on my favorite team. Don't tell anybody I'm unbiased here. What am I talking about? Yeah. Anyway, the old man can still shoot. Then we got Jim, who might arguably be the nastiest player in EU. You could tell me about Shaika all you want, but this Jim guy, I mean, he also had allegations of being a cheater before because this guy's just insane. Ambi, sleep on him all you want in the NAL league, but this guy, I mean, he's NA's best fragger, so how could I not pick him at the event that I think Shopify is going to start powering up at? You got Laura, who also had a little bit of a bad stage, but G2, that's going to be my player from G2. You need a G2 player. And Laura's insane. We all know that. So yeah, that's my pretty well-rounded role. I didn't pick a player from APAC, so maybe
Disgraceful.
That's
Disgraceful.
mhm.
Disgraceful.
Maybe I just didn't want to win, or maybe I did want to win. And yeah, so we'll see how that gets me or where that gets me because it's not all fraggers. So hopefully we get points somewhere.
Yeah, I don't even know what the coach does. Like, what is the purpose of picking a coach? What points do you get?
We're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out, aren't we?
What do
We're
you got
really
set?
selling. We're really selling this fantasy league here. Pick players. What do they do? We don't know. What is the scoring? We also don't know. But just
Well,
pick players. It's
I
fun.
do know. I just didn't want to. God, they can have fun on the website. They can dig into it. I know. I strategically picked my team. I'm just trying to play it off. But check out the
Did I
scoring.
fuck
You'll know
up?
why.
Are you saying I fucked up?
Maybe they added some rules this year. You should have probably looked.
I choose not to look.
Fair.
Yeah.
Mr. Fettuccini, would you like to read your team?
I tried to go with my team is called Fet Nation because we are all the Fet Nation, right? I try to go with the players that I think because I think kills are gonna probably get over accounted into whatever rating system you're winning or losing in fantasy on. So I just try to go with the players that I've literally seen most consistently always be positive in kills, basically J90 and Stompin. J9O, I don't think I've ever seen that guy go negative. Like, I'm just gonna be real. Like, he's the male. So a lot of mailbox players, a lot of players that like just play like a supportive, cut roll, sit still, be a sentry turret, hold people as they run away. And then if your entries die, you're gonna get like a 2v5, like a bunch of like free picks and people over aggressing. They will always do well. Joom, I also picked Joom. I was torn between Joom and Adrian from Team Secret. Adrian's a support player from Team Secret, but I think Joom's just had a lot more like plot armor lately, where he's like clutching up rounds, and I think that goes well. So yeah, he's always like he is also like a later alive player in like half the rounds, less so than Adrian, but I think he had the high ratings and the high kills in Europe for Secret, so hopefully there. I think Gavin is actually like the rare case of like a really aggressive entry fragger being super consistent. Like if you look at like the world eaters on like aggressive entry frag, you think of like, Ambi or Loira. Not, I guess Loira's more of a lurk, but still you get what I mean. Loira, Herd's also a bit of a lurk, I guess, but like they're very 50-50, very inconsistent. Gavin's I think the sole outlier, which is why I think he's the best lurk entry in the world. Yeah, that guy's been tearing it up this stage, especially in playoffs, and I'm really biased towards him because I love him. And then Reaps is the most talented player from Asia, from the least canonically talented region. So, like, okay, I love all the players on Weibo. Like, this is in no offense to you guys, but I think it's significantly easier to achieve high kills on a team that needs you to get high kills, as opposed to everyone can frag out and you're getting scraps. Twister is just because, like, I look at every single team, and I'm like, I'm playing... I feel like all of them can bomb out. So if we're going by wins, I feel like Secret, I guess, is the safest in my eyes for not bombing out, which I think now that I say that, that's probably going to get clipped and they're going to go 0-3, which I hope they don't. Either way. Oh, fuck!
Did they just
Yeah,
go
I was going to
0-3?
say, this is a brilliant move for you to just not pick a single Brazilian player of the most. You have the most dominant region in the game, and you decided to not pick a single Brazilian for your roster.
I was also going to say, I forgot the factor
Wow.
of, like, the further they go, the more games they get to get in, and the more kills they get to mop up. Shit.
That's okay. You've locked in. Look.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
locked.
mostly.
Brazilian coach.
Yeah, you got a Brazilian coach for an EU team. I guess that kind of counts.
Yeah. I just try to go by like purely statistically positive players and the safest pick for a coach, I thought. But yeah.
Damn, gave me a new idea. I should have did the 417 nation. Everyone that runs the 417.
Lion
Everyone
Twitch
that
players,
runs the
baby.
Rexon.
Lion Twitch and
Yeah.
There's a
Damn.
third, right?
Rexon's a fucking banger pick, bro. Rexon also never goes
Rexon is
negative.
Mr. Consistent. Is what
Is
I
there,
call
is there
him.
a third 417 other than Lion and Twitch? Am I forgetting one?
There's 5 of them, Parker. You have Rora, you have Sense, you have Lion, you have Twitch, you have. Is there one more? Actually, is there 4?
No, I forgot about Aurora entirely, and I forgot
that's
that
4.
Sens had the 417 because I thought they just had that kind of goofy new gun.
Okay, maybe
Totally
4.
forgot
of them.
about that.
Maybe there's yeah, but I consistently complain about it on my stream all the time because come land, just wait. You guys are gonna see lineups with 3 of those bad boys.
Dude, the Buck DMR is fucking nuts too, bro. That
Let's
shit-
bring the
It's the
TCSG to
exact same
offense.
stats.
Let's relive 2020 SI. Any other comments about these? I think these are some good teams. I mean, keep in mind, guys, this is mostly for content here. This is not. We're a show. We're here to edutain.
No,
We're here to
actually,
educate and
the
entertain.
Loser, no. We agreed on something beforehand, and Parker's too scared to say
We
it 'cause he
did.
knows it's
We
gonna
did.
happen to him. But we agreed that the loser has to donate to a sperm bank and then check off the box that says "Let the kids contact you when they're 18." That's the agreed punishment. I
The
saw
fuck did we have that topic? I never agreed to shit.
Yeah, I take it back. I don't remember.
I saw a tweet on that being someone's fantasy football
Yeah.
punishment, and I thought it was hilarious.
Jesus.
Not an original idea.
For legal purposes, that is a joke. It's not something we're really doing.
It's not an illegal thing to do.
I will say it. We can have a fun bet like the 3 of us where the loser of the 3 of us has to dress up in a full clown costume for an episode.
A loser has to come severely intoxicated to the next episode.
That is a terrible- we are
he
not
didn't
doing
like
that.
the clown.
That just wants to get drunk. That just wants to get drunk and come on the show.
That's
That's
another
it.
episode for me. I'm joking.
That's what
Yeah.
co-streams are for. We're good.
You're
Yeah.
right. No, you're right.
Drink on your personal time, not when we have sponsors incoming. So
Oh, fuck.
that's right. We're not just going to be for us, but chat, do me a favor, join the league. We want to see what you stack up with. Let's try to blow all the other leagues out of the water, get as many of you in as humanly possible. Hilariously, 6on6 is the 69th sub-league. Let's go. We're all children here. But there's one other thing that let's talk about before we wrap the show, because we keep saying that it's going to be a short show, and then we are now at like 2 hours. So we have failed spectacularly at being short on time. Rainbow Six came out with its own Pickems through the Ubisoft website. There are 2 things that you need to do for this. This is another call to action for you. This will also be in the video description on YouTube, so you can follow it. Step number 1 is go again. If you still have the tab open, excellent. If not, reopen it. You want to go to Project Prisma's website yet again, and you want to go to the simulator. The reason why is because this is a Swiss system. So before you can do your Pickems, you need to know which teams are facing which on which days so that you can accurately rate them on wins. So for example, if you were like, oh yeah, I think Falcons and Furia are both going to go 3-0. And then you run the simulator and you see, they play each other on the second day, so one of them has to lose. You're going to blow your Pickems. So there are going to be 2 links for you. The very first link is to the Project Prisma simulator. Go to that, click on the teams, make sure that you filled out your roster, and then on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a little list of the top 8 teams. Those are the teams that you're then going to plug into the Ubisoft website, which will be the link below it. So go to Project Prisma first, run your simulator. I will throw up on my screen, or producer David will throw up on my screen what I simulated from Project Prisma. These are the teams that I think are going to do these results. I said that FaZe Clan and Furia are going to emerge from the groups 3-0. Then I said M80, Falcons, and Secret will win 3 matches and will be the next 3 to emerge from the groups. And then the last 3 teams making up the top 8 are Shopify Rebellion, G2 Esports, and Space Station. And it's funny because I didn't actually have Space Station being a top 8 team, but that again is just the way it worked with the simulator. So SSG ended up being the 8th team to qualify. There you go. I looked at, you look at what teams are playing what, how do they stack up? Now, obviously, there are only 2 Brazilian teams that are making it. Yes, they are the 2 best teams, but there are only 2 Brazilian teams making it. I know that may be a bit of a hot take, especially when like half of the top 8 tends to be Brazilian teams. But I think FaZe and Furia, they've just got the juice. I don't have full faith in W7M making it that deep. I just don't. I'm sorry. I don't. M80, I think, is the best NA team. I think right now, for good reason, we all had an M80 player on our fantasy team. You both had Gavin, I had Gunner. I think they're going to go far. They are a terrific team. I think they've got the sauce as well. I think Falcons are Falcons. They're great. Team Secret have looked consistently good through both EML and the EWC. And then Shopify, G2, and Space Station are going to make it in. I'm a little worried about G2. I don't think they're going to be as dominant. I think they're going to show some adjustments, especially with Stompin still finding his footing at a LAN event. SSG are consistent. They tend to make deep runs at a lot of their events. And I mean, Shopify Rebellion, if I didn't put Troy in the top 8, I think he would actually come and blow up my house. So that's my top 8.
Biased.
Mint.
Yes. Me.
Your turn.
Oh, my turn? Okay, so also, just plugging it in there. Broke it down real good. It's going to be a YouTube video, so check it out. But I'll go into it a little bit because we actually have very, very similar ball knowledge here, Parker. I don't know if you know this. Okay, very similar. That's probably a bad thing for me. But
I brought you down to my level, so
yeah.
I brought you down to my level.
Hello, Cat.
Hello, don't disconnect me from the Discord call. Please.
That was scary. So yeah, I again, the most important thing you said there was definitely use the calculator because you can't just pick your favorite teams. You don't know what the matchups are. So for me, I had Furia and Secret going through because I actually think no matter who is in their way, and it even showing that through the calculator, I think they win all their games because Secret, I think, will look like the most dangerous team at the event. Those guys are terrifying. They're just coming off of EWC. And yes, they started slow in stage 2, but by the end of stage 3, they looked back in their form and again, terrifying. Furia also looked terrifying in the SCL, dominating the entire, all the way through playoffs. Like, they just look unstoppable. So I think the 2 of them get the 3-0. And then we got M80, Falcons, and G2. Getting the 2-1 spot, or I guess the 3-1 spots, finishing with 1 loss. It's just the way the calculator worked again, because that G2, that very first game, that I think you might have highlighted this in the video, the M80 G2 game. Whew, am I excited to watch that? I also got M80 in the win because we're rooting for, America here. And that's our boys. So I think that's going to be G2's only loss. And then again, going through the seeding and all that, I think they'll win every other game. Falcons look really, really good too, and they look like in really good form. And then 6, 7, and 8.
6, 7.
I knew it as soon as I said it. The teams finishing basically 3 and 2 are going to be some real banger games. And Shopify is going to make it, the Rebellion are going to make it. FaZe Clan. You can't have a finals bracket without FaZe Clan in it. And then the one that I think, the only one that really differs from you, Parker, is going to be that NIP versus SSG game that I think will get at the 2-2 mark. And for me, see, if I made a tier list, I do think SSG is like an A tier or B tier team. Like I don't see them winning an event, but they are really scary, and they usually do go farther than other NA teams. But I just have the Rebellion and M80 with their matchups that they're getting this event better. And I think SSG they're gonna lose in the games. They're gonna want to be 2-2. That's exactly where you want SSG, right where pants are shitting. But I do think versus NIP, I think NIP have just looked really, really good. And I'm going on Igor's word also during an interview, because that guy's the GOAT, saying that he thinks NIP are the second best team in the entire region if they aren't shaking. So I'm just hopefully by the 5th game, when it's 2-2, their pants are clean. And they end up closing it out. And we get the best 3 Brazilian teams, the best 3 EU teams. And unfortunately, we're going to lose one of our NA juggernauts, but that is okay because I still believe in M80 in the Rebellion to make it far in the finals.
So I didn't realize this because I didn't really look at who was going where. Mm-hmm. I have NIP losing to W7M in the first match, losing to G2 in the second match, and then getting knocked out by BDS, going out 0-3.
Wow.
I have NIP and Enterprise as the only 2 teams going out 0-3. Then I have W7M, D plus Kia, and Wildcard going out in the very next bracket, and then I have CAG, Weibo, and BDS as the 3 bubble teams. So they all go out obviously as well.
Interesting. I also for Troy's sake, because I know you're rooting for Rebellion, and so am I, by the way. So am I. But I did the calculator, and there's a really good chance there's a game that I'm hoping doesn't happen, and that is Weibo versus Rebellion at 2-2. And I'm really scared because that could actually be a trap game, very similar to my DZ boys when they fell to Weibo in the previous event, where they just were not awake. And Weibo had a perfect gameplay, by the way, which was like make them execute. DZ's attacks were awful. Like there was a club attack or it was a garage defense where they actually didn't have anybody in garage. They just said, here you go. Here's garage. Open up the wall. Now what? I got 4 C4s and a smoke, which is awful. I mean, me and Fett would look at this like, what the hell is this? Like, that is not how you play garage. You got to have some time waste. And DZ fumbled, right? And they consistently did that, and DZ kept fumbling. And Shopify have had moments this stage where they got into those very similar locations or where they're about to execute, and then they get powered, and then here comes the plays on them, very similar to DZ. So hopefully everything is all good on the international level, because Weibo, I mean, I don't think they're a team that's going to shake in those moments. They're just going to be like running at you, and like they want those kind of moments, whereas a team like the Rebellion, obviously more experienced, the roster is stacked on paper. They should win. The pressure's on them. Could be a trap game that hopefully we don't see, but for entertainment, for cinema, could be cool.
I will just say one thing about NIP. I like NIP as an org. I've always had a soft spot for that team all the way back to the Kamikaze, Julio, Psycho core. But I watched enough SAL and I watched enough big games where I do not have faith in that roster. I mean, maybe it's just the eye test. Okay. They did finish first overall, but they came like a single round from not even making top 4. So, I mean, like, I don't know. Just the way that I see it is you have a lot of faith in NIP. You have a lot of faith in NIP. I don't know. This is where we're gonna our ball knowledge diverts here, and we'll see. Now, Fett, I'm assuming you've done one.
Yeah, throw it up on the screen, David, and tell me when it's on that screen, because y'all see it, I see it, and then he's winning the whole fucking thing. It doesn't fucking matter because the boys are winning the whole fucking thing. The boys One team, they're winning everything. It doesn't matter if they're 3-0, they're 3-1, or they're 3-2. They're winning the whole event. And if they're not winning the whole event, then it's Weibo Gaming because they're Chinese. It's that one or the other one. People are always like, "Yo, Fett, you're so fake. If Stop and played your boys, you would root for Stop." No, many are fucking on Stompin'. It's happening. It's happening on November 8th on my stream. It's happening. The real answer is, no, I'm just a moron and then didn't do predictions and I was lazy and I don't want to come out here with predictions that are fake and false and not well researched. So I'm gonna do a whole different long video doing actual predictions. Yeah.
Ooh, cut that part out. I don't like that part. I like the other part.
Fett's the kid who came to class and everybody's handing in their assignments and he looks around and he goes, "Oh shit, it was due today?" That's Fett trying to work it out. I can't believe you picked one team. You couldn't even just fake a bracket. You just went with M80. All right, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Dude, people feed Royal Penguin posted my he was begging me to show like a prediction on stream, and then he was like, "Can I please post that to TikTok?" And it got like 500,000 views because like people, I don't know why, people beg for my predictions, and then I get death threats when I get it wrong. So this time I'm gonna take it seriously. This time I'm gonna do some well researched, and I'm also gonna play it very, very safe. I realized like gambling assumptions always create inconsistencies. Like, dude, the YouTubers that predict like APAC always loses and Brazil always wins end up having like a higher success rate than like me, who's like, well, Furia tend to sandbag the very first game, so let me just say they lose right here. Which they do, by the way. Furia historically loves sandbagging that very first game.
That's it?
Fair.
Yeah, that's
Fair.
it.
Okay.
Fair.
Well, I have them
And
winning
scrims.
3-0, so they better not sandbag
Oh.
shit.
They've
The
done
event?
3-0s before. They've done 3-0s. They've done all 3-0s. A lot of
Yeah.
3-0s.
Okay.
And the last thing I'll say is when we get into the finals, and first off, follow my predictions if you want the 5 legendary alpha packs. I'm just saying. But when we get into the finals, we always have Fat made a great video about how very competitive this major will be. I am very excited just to see the bracket for the finals, because if it's anything like that we have, Parker, or just in, probably Fat too, like when since you're playing it safe, you are probably putting, we have 3 great teams from the great major regions, okay? If that is the finals bracket, it really just does depend on who's matched up versus who on any given day, because I really don't think any, from me and my eye test, I don't think any teams are super ahead of others. I, maybe NA Copium here, think truly that it just depends on the play style. Like we got M80 versus Secret versus Shop, or versus Rebellion versus Secret. Like there's a big difference.
Yeah.
That is a big difference on to seeing which NA team goes farther. So I'm going to be very excited to see, when we get to the finals bracket, to see if it's NA's time. Is it our time to bring it back? Since Fett lifted the Damo's head, since I lifted the Jaeger head. All right, who's next? Actually, what operator do we even know?
Since Troy lifted the hammer.
No.
What was
No,
Boston?
the
Boston
next
was the
operator.
The next
hammer.
operator.
Montreal. What was Montreal?
No, we're talking about NA winners though, right?
Yeah. Because it was Beast Coast, DZ,
TSM.
and then SIs or TSMs.
TSM, then SSG, right?
No, they never won.
No, SSG SI. 2020.
Oh, yes. My bad. I'm thinking current.
No,
Right.
old SSG.
Oh my god. Yeah. And then whatever the new operator trophy that we're holding up nowadays, I don't know, but
It was, I think Montreal was Scopos, wasn't it?
ooh,
Yes.
that's sick.
Yeah,
Montreal
it was.
Scopos.
I'm so mad at. I want one of the shield ones, man. I want a big shield. It's a
You missed
shield
the Par-
meta.
You missed the Paris Major.
I know.
I actually did not think it looked good. I thought it looked super. I think out of all of our trophies, that's actually one of my least favorite. I think it's a cool idea, but I think the actual execution wasn't the best.
That's
Yeah.
it. Man,
What?
that was it. We named everyone except for one
Yeah.
winner, which is
They ha-
Continuum.
Oh, it's very rare.
Wow,
to have
we
NA.
fucking
we are-
suck. Huh.
Whoa! NA Cope, man, we're winning this one.
Okay,
No,
okay,
you're
but
right.
hold on a second, guys. It's not also fair to do this when like Penta G2 won like literally like a third of everything that's ever been
They
played,
shouldn't
and now
have, though.
Furia is on track to do the same. So it's like These
Goats.
two teams are like
Goats.
heat sinks, and then everybody else fights over the scraps.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
like,
yeah, but like that's
Yeah.
part of it. It's not like you're gonna
Yeah.
look at like, you know, like whatever team Shaiko's on and be like, well, if they didn't have Shaiko, they'd be fucking dog. Like, yeah, like that's them, bro. That's
the
them.
roster.
True.
That's
Yeah.
the roster, bro. Like
That's
I look
true.
at, yeah.
As
Alright.
long as if NA doesn't win though, go Brazil. That's all I got to say. Because
Real. Yeah, anyone but EU, honestly. 'cause
I just
EU
can't
fans are insufferable.
stand.
I can't stand the EU fans. coming
Oh
in.
my God.
Oh shit! Oh, I can't believe you would think your region is superior to mine.
hey.
don't know how to
British
play.
worked really hard to make sure they weren't a part of Europe. So you cannot include them. Okay.
True.
Oh
They
shit.
made their bed or cot or
True.
whatever the hell they call it. Somebody asked me on stream earlier today, like, would you move to Europe? And it's like, my family is like 97% Scottish, or it's like, I think my breakdown's like 95% Scottish, like 3% English, 2% like Irish or something. And I was like, I'd move to Scotland. And people were like, why? Would you ever move to England? And I was like, abso-fucking-lutely not. You want me to be surrounded by English people as somebody whose whole family is Scottish? Are you insane?
Mm.
Yeah.
Have a nice
I
profit,
think
though.
interregional. I think very toxic interregional rivalry is a very healthy thing for the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
I think we
100%.
should hate each other like a lot. Like
Yes.
As long
not-
as it doesn't get really like real, I think it's
Yeah,
fine.
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
yeah.
No,
More
'cause when I was
joking.
thinking of like how people were talking about Stomp. I know like the old guard of like Siege esport watchers really hated the influx of wave of like Stompin is the king, he's the goat. But like it reminded me of sports banter. Like I was like, wow, this is great. Like it reminds me of the way people talk about like LeBron, albeit like he hasn't hit LeBron's achievements in Siege, but still, I think it's great. I love this energy. Fuck
Yeah,
you,
he-
EU.
They needed them. They needed red, white, and blue in there.
Yeah.
I mean, red, white, and blue is also the colors of the Netherlands and
They needed
Texas.
France.
How about that? How about that?
They
They
needed-
needed a
they needed
Texas
France.
boy.
They needed a Texan
Okay.
in
They
there.
needed a Texan.
Yeehaw.
you- teach 'em how to play
aren't
the
you both
game.
Texans?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know, like I
No.
You
spawned
live in
in-
Chicago now, but
No.
you're originally a Texan.
I spawned in Texan, yes. I spawned in.
Man, where are you originally from?
I spawned in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah, you're a Rust Belt boy. Great Lakes,
Yeah.
baby. Great Lakes superiority.
That's Slate Belt region.
They're not good lakes. They're Great Lakes. All right. We did
Producer
it.
David spawned in Texas too.
Producer David spawned in
Wow.
from Texas.
I like to think I was
Okay.
supposed to be Texas.
I spawned in Toronto, and I have stayed
Damn.
here. And it is currently 6-1 Jays, top of the ninth. So we are good. Good. Go Jays, go. Right? Can we get a go Jays, go in the comments? Let's go. Chat. While we conclude this episode, don't forget to thank producer David. You got to hear producer David's voice, like the voice of God above us. You got to hear our banter as we blew past the time again, because you encourage us to keep rolling when we're on a topic. And we did just that. Gentlemen, before I close the show with a couple points, do you have anything urgent to add?
Nope. I mean, my editor was hyping up like Shohei Ohtani. Like, I don't watch baseball. My editor was hyping up Shohei Ohtani like he was the greatest fucking thing to ever happen to baseball. So
He
like,
is probably the greatest baseball player of all time. Yes.
really.
Yes.
Damn, I didn't even. Oh shit. Okay,
He is,
so it's real.
an
Wow.
unbelievable. He's like one of the best pitchers in the league, and he's one of the best hitters in the league, and he does both of them effortlessly.
Didn't Babe Ruth do that though?
Babe Ruth is great, but you have to realize that baseball at that point in time was basically like a beer league. It was not like what it is today.
Okay.
Like
Bummer.
Babe Ruth is more of like a legend, a myth,
Mm.
than a real person at this point. He's great,
Okay.
but it's like,
The donk of.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Otani is like the donk of baseball. There you go. There's your CS point of reference. Mint,
So
closing
who's-
thoughts before I do the
Yeah.
general housekeeping.
Well, who's the Babe Ruth of Siege?
I mean,
Because we had plumbers back then too. You know,
I was going to say, who was the best at the beginning and then
and
was like the high watermark? I don't even know. Because a lot of those guys like are still around. Maybe like Pengu?
yeah. Penta immediately won off the rip.
Penta's the one that comes to mind first, like
yeah.
Fabian or like Pengu, but they still did well in a competitive environment. I don't know. Chat, here's a
Fair.
great question.
Fair.
Our final call to action. Chat. Who do you think is the Babe Ruth of Siege? Somebody who was extraordinarily good at the beginning, but time has passed them by to the point where if they were to play today, they would be so woefully ill-equipped to battle the best of the best. Who is it? Who do you think
Easy.
it is?
Last call to action. Who is the best
Brandon Carr.
Canadian person in Siege. Doesn't matter what they do, if they're a player, caster, or whatever. A debate in the comments. Who is the best person from Canada?
I wonder if it's going to be Troy.
Wow, who could that
No,
be?
no.
You can't even form a Canadian national team. You got Troy, Spirits, Clone Troy again, Spirits.
I'm coming off the bench.
Fox
I'm playing.
from 4
I'm
years
competing.
ago. I mean, yeah.
I'm
Anyway,
competing.
I'm good.
Poge at a retirement. We'll get Jarvis.
Yeah, that's how bad it is. We're pulling people out that haven't played the game in 4 years.
It's not good. It's not good. We come to the conclusion of this episode. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Fett and Mint. Thank you, producer David, for all the hard work. Thank producer David in the comments. He's very close to getting his Lamborghini, maybe about 100 more episodes. Thank you, of course, to Last Free Nation for making this possible in the first place. There's a couple things that are going to be coming up on the radar. Number one, right now, we tentatively set for Sunday to record a super show with representatives from all of the 4 main regions. We have a couple people in mind. While we were recording this podcast, I've started receiving answers from some of these people as to whether or not they can be on the show. I'm not going to give the information away ahead of time. What the fuck are you doing? Why the crotch shot? That's perfect. Just dong. He's just dong right on the camera.
Just end the show. Just
Okay.
do the outro. Just do it.
Eric.
The super, yeah, Eric, you got the real name from Mint. You know that's bad, Eric. So the super show is going to likely be recorded this Sunday. It will likely come out later on next week. So this show should go live on either Friday or Saturday, and then the show will be recorded on Sunday, and then it'll come out the week after. I think the tracking date would be, it'll come out on like the 5th or 6th of November. We have spoken with Guz and Xenox, and by the time this show goes live, the talent announcement should be out. So hopefully I'm not leaking anything, but yes, I am working the Munich Major. So the idea is that Guz and Xenox will also be working the Munich Major. Again, the talent announcements are supposed to come out tomorrow, which means that it would come out a day before the show went live, because we are in the future. Guz and Xenox film their Jake and Guz show at live events. I have asked them if we can piggyback off them, borrow their equipment to maybe do a 6-on-6 in person in Munich. They said yes, so send them some love. If you do not watch the Jake and Guz show, it is also an excellent Siege podcast. Let's link it in the description, producer David. Let's throw that in. I will get you the link handy. So hopefully we'll be able to do one live at Munich. Obviously it'll be pre-recorded. It won't come out live, but you know, the general gist of it. And then last but not least, we should have some sponsors for the super show. So there you go. You'll get to hear us do ad reads, something that I have actually never done before on a podcast. So this will be an experience for all of us. So just some minor housekeeping for all of you. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, like, subscribe. It really helps us out. Fett needs to move again. So he needs to pay for another apartment. He's moving every month. It's a hilarious gag. You got to help him out. On behalf of everybody who makes this show work and you, the audience who keeps the lights on, thank you so very much. Take care of yourselves and we'll see you for the next show.